Chapter 1159. Only You Rumble. Things were always developing in an unpredictable direction. When Helian's fist was close to the Dark Emperor's head, the entire 100-flower array began to shake violently. Uft! Not only did the 100-flower array shake, even the Sword of Evil spat out a mouthful of blood as his face turned pale. Such a change caused Helian to be slightly stunned. Swish! However, it was this short 0.1 second that Helian was caught by Ningyu. He only had one chance. If he missed this opportunity, he wouldn't get another one. Ningyu arrived in front of the Dark Emperor in an instant. He first kicked the Dark Emperor away, then took out the red demon sword and slashed at Helian. Whoosh! Ningyu had practically used his full strength in this slash. Helian couldn't dodge in time, and his right arm was pierced by the sword. Blood spurted out, and flesh splattered everywhere. Ningyu, I'll turn your bones into ashes. Raising his head and letting out a furious roar, Helian roared and charged at Ningyu without any regard for the consequences. Swish! Suddenly, there was a sudden change in the situation. A figure rapidly flashed before Helian. Helian, on the other hand, stopped on the spot. He opened his mouth and pointed at Ningyu with his right hand. He wanted to say something, but before he could say anything, he fell to the ground. Plop! His body hit the ground, causing a cloud of dust to rise. Gulp! The sudden change made Ningyu swallow a mouthful of saliva uncontrollably. Helian was a 9th-grade sovereign. Although his battle prowess had decreased, his overall strength was still terrifying. The cultivator that could kill Helian with a single move must be at least a 9th-grade human supreme realm martial artist. At the thought of this, Ningyu hurriedly released his perception, wanting to detect who killed Helian. Stop looking. I killed Helian. Buzz. The void trembled, and then a figure slowly appeared in front of Ningyu. Hiss! Ningyu sucked in a breath of cold air as he sensed the terrifying aura emanating from this figure. 9th-grade, human, supreme martial artist. The cultivation of this figure had reached the terrifying 9th-grade, human supreme realm. Whoosh! Far away, Palatial Lord Centauria happened to kill the last elixir puppet. Her figure flashed, and she arrived before Ningyu. Whoosh! The Sword of Evil dragged his heavy footsteps to Ningyu's side. In comparison, Palatial Lord Centauria still had a lot of combat strength left, while the Sword of Evil was heavily injured. After all, the Sword of Evil was in charge of reinforcing the 100-flower array. Yet, the 100-flower array had a hole blasted open by a 9th-grade human supreme. 100-flower array. I didn't expect to encounter the 100-flower array again. The 9th-grade sovereign squinted his eyes and said, If I've guessed correctly, you guys should be from the Flower Palace. Let me introduce myself. I'm Fong Chong. The 9th-grade sovereign continued, I didn't want to kill you guys, but you guys killed so many elixir puppets. If I don't kill you guys, I won't be able to appease the public. So I'm sorry. Since you know that this is the 100-flower array, then you should know that it's impossible for you to break it with your strength. Palatial Lord Centauria wasn't scared by Fong Chong at all. Haha, I can't break it? Fong Chong smiled and said, I'm curious. Since I can't break the 100-flower array, how can I leave the Pill Cave and enter the 100-flower array? Let me answer. The Sword of Evil said in a deep voice as he wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth. The reason why you can break the 100-flower array is because there are many elixir puppets in the Pill Cave helping you. If you still can't enter the 100-flower array with their help, then I can't help but doubt your intelligence. Good, very good. So what if I tell you, because of the other faction, this Pill Cave is the last chance for us, the pro-war faction. Fong Chong continued, If we can't break it soon, the Eastern Expedition Army will move to another place to continue the war. At that time, we'll have to fight the elixir puppets endlessly. That's not something that we, the pro-war faction, want to see. Fong Chong, don't be arrogant. I've already strengthened the 100-flower array and the seal on the Pill Cave's entrance. In other words, you've lost the protection of the elixir puppets. The Sword of Evil said coldly, although you're a ninth-grade sovereign, I believe that as long as we slowly grind you down, we'll kill you sooner or later. Ha ha ha. Feng Chong seemed to have heard the funniest joke in the world as he raised his head and laughed. Then he coldly said, I'll stand here and see how you're going to kill me. Palatial Lord Centauria, how confident are you in fighting Feng Chong? After listening to the conversation between Feng Chong and the Sword of Evil, Ningyu asked in a low voice with a grave expression. Feng Chong was a ninth-grade sovereign. Unless his cultivation reached fourth-grade sovereign, Ningyu wouldn't dare to fight Feng Chong. The difference in strength between them was too great. If they fought, they would definitely die. Ningyu, it's all up to you to kill Feng Chong, the palatial Lord Centauria said in a deep voice. All up to me? What do you mean? Ningyu was slightly stunned as he asked in confusion. He was only a third-grade sovereign. How could he kill Feng Chong? No matter how he thought about it, it didn't seem realistic. There's still some energy left in the 100-flower ray. I'll transfer all of it to you. Then you'll fight Feng Chong. Whether we can defeat him, save Danwu College, and save ourselves, it's all up to you. The palatial Lord Centauria didn't wait for Ningyu to reject her. She waved her hands continuously. As the palatial Lord Centauria waved her hands, a terrifying energy suddenly appeared before her. Swish! More and more energy gathered, eventually forming a small vortex. The vortex tore through the void and suddenly drilled into Ningyu's body. Rumble! As the vortex entered his body, Ningyu's aura rose at an astonishing speed. Crack! Crack! Crisp sounds came from Ningyu's body. Ningyu's battle prowess had risen to the 8th-grade sovereign realm in a short period of time. His cultivation was only at 3rd-grade sovereign realm, but his battle prowess had reached the 8th-grade sovereign realm. Furthermore, Ningyu's battle prowess was still rising. At this rate, it wouldn't be long before Ningyu's battle prowess broke through the 8th-grade sovereign realm and reached the 9th-grade sovereign realm. By then, he would be able to fight Feng Chong. You're courting death. Feng Chong wasn't a half-baked 9th-grade sovereign like Hilian. He was extremely smart. In Feng Chang's opinion, no matter how strong Ningyu's battle prowess was, it was impossible for him to fight him. However, Feng Chong knew that it was better to nip it in the bud. Clenching his right hand into a fist, Feng Chong suddenly charged at Ningyu. I'll kill you as soon as possible before your strength reaches its peak to avoid future troubles. Sword of Evil, defend with all your might. You have to hold off Ningyu for at least 3 minutes. The palatial Lord Centauria took a step forward and stood in front of Ningyu, blocking Feng Chang's first attack. Bang! Chapter 1160. Feng Chong, since you're courting death, I'll fulfill your wish. Feng Chong swept his gaze across Ningyu after forcing the Centauria Palace master back with a single move. His eyes turned extremely cold. 3 minutes. From the aura emanating from Ningyu's body, Feng Chong could clearly tell that Ningyu would need at least 3 minutes to raise his battle prowess to the 9th-grade supreme realm. In other words, he only needed to kill Ningyu within 3 minutes, and all his problems would be solved. Feng Chong decided to kill the Centauria Palace master first, before finding trouble with Ningyu. If he handled it well, he might even have the chance to transfer the energy in Ningyu's body into his own. Buzz! Feng Chong did not hesitate at all and attacked without hesitation. With a buzzing sound, Feng Chang's body gradually turned illusory. Not good. The Sword of Evil's expression changed drastically when he saw Feng Chong disappear. He hurriedly flew to Ningyu's side. Venerable Sword Evil knew very well what the most important thing was. He had to protect Ningyu. Only by protecting Ningyu and raising Ningyu's battle prowess to the 9th-grade supreme realm in a short period of time would he have a chance to fight against Feng Chong. Otherwise, Everyone would be finished today. As the sword of evil was close to Ningyu, he arrived before Ningyu first. Bang! It made no difference whether he arrived earlier or later. The result would be the same. The sword of evil's body fell backward like a kite with a broken string after taking Feng Chang's punch. The sword of evil's already weak body became even weaker after landing heavily on the ground. Can't even withstand a single blow. Feng Chang curled his lips and walked toward Ningyu. He threw 2 punches in a row within a minute. The first punch sent Palatial Lord Centauria retreating. The second punch sent the sword of evil retreating. Feng Chang had originally wanted to throw a third punch, but when he saw the Dark Emperor, he immediately changed his mind. Feng Chang felt that he should capture Ningyu first, as the Dark Emperor was a purple-gold sky-devouring dog. If he refined the Dark Emperor, he would be able to refine a very effective medicinal pill. In any case, the Dark Emperor was only a middle-grade, third human sovereign, and his strength was on par with Ningyu. In other words, Feng Chang did not place the Dark Emperor in his eyes at all. Whoosh! Feng Chang's speed increased, until he turned into a blur that appeared in front of Ningyu in the blink of an eye. Ningyu, you can only blame yourself for offending someone you shouldn't have. Surrender obediently and offer up your energy. Maybe I'll leave your corpse intact if I'm happy. The corners of Feng Chang's mouth rose as he said, "Otherwise I will let you know what cruelty is." 2 more minutes. Ningyu mumbled to himself after hearing Feng Chang's words. In just 2 minutes, Ningyu would be able to raise his strength to the 9th grade martial sovereign realm. At that time, he might be able to face Feng Chang head-on. Roar! The Dark Emperor knew that he had to stop Feng Chang. Clenching his teeth, the Dark Emperor let out a roar into the sky as his figure rapidly expanded. In just a second, the Dark Emperor's figure grew a few times bigger, and a pair of purple golden wings appeared on his back, flapping rapidly. Whoosh! Whoosh! Following the flapping of the purple golden wings, 2 icy rays pierced through the sky toward Feng Chang. "You're courting death." Feng Chang stomped the ground and turned around. With a glare, 2 equally powerful icy rays appeared and collided with the icy rays from the Dark Emperor's fan. Whoosh! Whoosh! For icy rays collided with one another, resulting in a sizzling sound. Following this, Feng Chang's figure moved swiftly, temporarily giving up on Ningyu and attacking the Dark Emperor. Crack! Feng Chang's attack was ruthless as he slapped the purple golden wings on the Dark Emperor's back. A crisp sound could be heard as the Dark Emperor's right wing broke. Feng Chang did not stop after his attack. He raised his right leg and kicked the Dark Emperor's left wing. Crack! The same crisp sound could be heard as the wing broke. In such a short period of time, the Dark Emperor's wings were broken. A hysterical roar came from the Dark Emperor's mouth. The wings were an important part of the heaven-devouring hound's body. With the wings broken, the heaven-devouring hound's strength would drop by 90%. The Dark Emperor was a purple golden heaven-devouring hound, and he was no exception. The Dark Emperor was no match for Feng Chang to begin with, and now that his strength had dropped by 90%, there was no way he could withstand Feng Chang's powerful attack. Whoosh! Whoosh! Fortunately, the palace master of the 100 Flowers Palace and the Sword of Evil dashed out at the same time and blocked Feng Chang's fatal blow for the Dark Emperor. Otherwise, Feng Chang's punch would have blasted the Dark Emperor's brains out. Puff! Puff! Although they blocked the fatal blow for the Dark Emperor, the palace master of the 100 Flowers Palace and the Sword of Evil were heavily injured. Their auras were weak, and they were on the brink of death. The Sword of Evil and the palace master of the 100 Flowers Palace were in a critical situation. At this moment, even a true martial realm cultivator could kill the Sword of Evil and the others. A bunch of trash. I'll deal with you later. Another minute passed after Venerable Sword Evil and the others tossed and turned. As a 9th grade human sovereign, Fang Chong would always leave some leeway. He wouldn't waste time to deal with Ningyu, because it might lead to unpredictable changes. Ningyu, you only have the strength of a pinnacle 8th grade human sovereign, and I'm a 9th grade human sovereign. How are you going to fight me? Fang Chang's lips curled into a smile. He clenched his right fist and punched at Ningyu's divine sense. According to Fang Chang's guess, Ningyu must have gathered all the energy in his divine sense. As long as he could destroy Ningyu's divine sense, there was a high chance that he could transfer the energy into his own body. Energy that could allow a 3rd grade human sovereign to fight a 9th grade human sovereign was enough to make one's blood boil. Rumble. However, before Fang Chang's fist could reach Ningyu's eyes opened, and a terrifying aura surged from his body. Fang Chang was slightly stunned, and he looked at Ningyu with doubt. It had only been 2 minutes. Logically speaking, Ningyu couldn't have refined all the energy. Ningyu's strength should only be a pinnacle 8th grade human sovereign. It's impossible for him to reach. F***CK. Feeling Ningyu's aura reaching its peak, Fang Chang gnashed his teeth in anger. I've been tricked. Ningyu's battle prowess had yet to reach the 9th grade human sovereign realm. He was still at the peak of the 8th grade human sovereign realm. If Ningyu had the strength of a pinnacle 9th grade human sovereign, Fang Chang might have some reservations. But now Fang Chang was fearless. Sapling, you made me wait for so long. Ignoring the changes in Fang Chang's expression, Ningyu couldn't help but curse. Ningyu knew that the Sword of Evil and the others couldn't hold Fang Chang off for 3 minutes. Therefore, the moment he refined the energy, he started to contact the sapling, hoping that it could help him. After all, the sapling was the world tree, and the world tree had a fatal restraining effect on Dan Qi. Chapter 1161. Chapter 1161 Battle. Fang Chang. Sometimes, cultivation does not represent strength. Since the sapling was willing to help, Ningyu's worries were slightly alleviated. After devouring a large amount of royal-grade origin crystals in the Devil's Cave, the sapling's strength had improved greatly. Although it could not contend against a 9th grade human sovereign in a one-on-one fight, with Ningyu's help it could go toe-to-toe with a 9th grade human sovereign. Although cultivation does not represent strength, if your cultivation is too low, I don't believe you can be that strong. With a cold snort, Fang Chang's figure flashed, and he charged at Ningyu. Fang Chang did not know that Ningyu had a sapling. In his opinion, Ningyu was just stalling for time, pretending to be a big shot. Without fully refining the energy, Ningyu's battle prowess could not possibly reach the 9th grade human sovereign level. In other words, Ningyu was no match for him. Chi. In order to kill Ningyu quickly, Fang Chang used his full strength in his first move. Clenching his right hand into a fist, violent soul force coiled around it as he threw a punch at Ningyu's head. Another soul attack. As a soul Dan puppet, almost every attack Fang Chang threw was related to soul force. Fortunately, Ningyu's soul force had reached the 7th grade middle phase, or else Fang Chang's punch would have killed him on the spot. Puchi. Even though Ningyu managed to tilt his head at the critical moment, his body was still hit by Fang Chang's punch. A tearing pain came from within his body, and the taste of blood in Ningyu's throat became more obvious. In the end, the taste rushed to his mouth, and he spat out a mouthful of blood. Ha. Seeing Ningyu's miserable state, Fang Chang threw his head back and laughed maniacally. In the face of absolute strength, all schemes are useless. Fang Chang, I admit that I underestimated you, but you won't be so lucky next. Wiping the blood from the corner of his mouth, Ningyu said in a low voice, Sai, what's wrong with this world? Why are there so many stupid people? No matter how I kill them, I can't kill them all. Pitiful people must have something hateful about them. Sighing softly, Fang Chang's eyes flashed with coldness as he charged forward once more. In Fang Chang's eyes, Ningyu was already a dead man. No one in the world could save him. Bang! 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 Each of Fang Chang's attacks could be said to be using his full strength. Each attack landed on Ningyu's body, causing Ningyu to be on the verge of collapsing. Why isn't he fighting back? Has Ningyu lost his mind? In the distance, the Dark Emperor and the others said anxiously when they saw that Ningyu was only defending and had no intention of fighting back. I don't think he's stupid. He's trying to buy time for us. Palatial Lord Centauria had a clearer view of the situation. Ning, you clearly had the battle prowess of a pinnacle 8th grade human supremacy, but he was willing to let Fang Chang hit him. There could only be one conclusion. Ningyu was trying to buy time for them so that they could recover as soon as possible. Recover what? The Shenyang pills have all been devoured. If this goes on, everyone will die. The Dark Emperor said anxiously. The situation was clear. Ning, you couldn't hold on for much longer, and they didn't have any Shenyang pills to replenish themselves. If there wasn't a better idea, everyone would be finished. At this moment, the Dark Emperor felt that death was so close to him. If Fang Chang was only an 8th grade human supremacy, they could still put up a fight. But Fang Chang was a 9th grade human supremacy. In front of a 9th grade human supremacy, they were completely what? Suddenly, the situation changed. The Dark Emperor, Sword of Evil, and Palatial Lord Centauria had their mouths agape, their faces filled with shock. In the battlefield, not far away, a dramatic scene happened. For the first dozen punches, Ningyu had only been dodging. When Fang Chang's 20th punch was about to land on Ningyu, a terrifying aura suddenly burst forth from Ningyu's body. Clenching his right fist, he punched Fang Chang's chest while he was unprepared. Bang! The massive force that came from Fang Chang's chest sent him flying a few meters back. Whoosh! With his attack succeeding, Ningyu chased after him. Ningyu's speed was so fast that even the Sword of Evil and the rest couldn't detect Ningyu's figure. In the blink of an eye, Ningyu had appeared in front of Fang Chang. Take my punch! Clenching his right fist, Ningyu's soul power and Yuan Qi wrapped around his wrist as he punched towards Fang Chang's head. Ning, you had also used his full strength for this punch. Although he knew that he couldn't kill Fang Chang with his full strength, Ning, you still had a plan. You're courting death. Due to his carelessness, Ningyu's sneak attack had succeeded. Fang Chang gnashed his teeth in anger. A cold light flashed in Fang Chang's eyes as he punched out with his right hand, colliding with Ningyu's fist. Letting you live for so long is my dereliction of duty. While punching out, Fang Chang gloomily said, in your next life, remember that there are some pill puppets that you can't afford to provoke. Is that so? At the crucial moment, Ningyu suddenly withdrew his right hand, and the corners of his mouth curled up. Ningyu's actions caused Fang Chang to be slightly puzzled. What was he planning? This is the moment. While Fang Chang was puzzled, Ningyu waved his hands repeatedly, and a cold light instantly flew out. This cold light was extremely fast, and it arrived before Fang Chang in an instant. Crack! The cold light brought with it a sharp gust of wind, directly chopping off Fang Chang's right hand. Ah! A hysterical scream rang out from Fang Chang's mouth. At this moment, Fang Chang's right hand was chopped off by the cold light. Rumble! The sudden change caused the Sword of Evil and the Palace Master to widen their mouths as they stood on the spot in a daze. Fang Chang's right hand was chopped off. Arg! Continuous screams rang out from Fang Chang's mouth. Crack! His left hand turned into a palm, and before Ningyu and the rest, Fang Chang chopped off his entire right arm. The reason why Fang Chang did this was because he noticed that his right arm had started to rot at a rapid pace. If he didn't chop off his right arm soon, his entire body might rot in a few more seconds. Chopping off his right arm could prevent this situation from happening. What a pity! Seeing how decisive Feng Chong was, Ningyu shook his head and muttered, "A ninth-grade sovereign realm is truly different. He's not sloppy and indecisive when it comes to handling matters." Ningyu was clear that aside from Feng Chong, any other 8th grade sovereign realm sovereign would reconsider the previous situation, and they wouldn't abandon their right arm so quickly. Feng Chang's decisiveness proved that he was a formidable opponent. Ningyu secretly raised his guard. "Good, very good, very good." Clenching his left hand into a fist, Feng Chong coldly said, "You've crippled my arm, so I'll use your flesh and blood to reform my right arm." "I'm a human and you're a Dananai. What does reforming your arm have to do with me?" Ningyu said, "After losing your right arm, your battle prowess has dropped from a 9th-grade sovereign to a pinnacle 8th-grade sovereign. Right now, we're on the same level. So what makes you think that you can kill me?" "Ha ha ha." Feng Chong raised his head and laughed. "With this." Chapter 1162. Find a Way. Shadow-Splitting Sword. Ningyu stared at the silver sword in Feng Chang's hand, but before he could react, Palatial Lord Centauria shouted from the side, "What's a shadow-splitting sword?" The Dark Emperor asked. "Although it's only a mid-grade monarch rank flying sword, it's very special." The Palatial Master explained, "As the name suggests, the shadow-splitting sword can split into countless swords, and every single one of them is a mid-grade monarch rank." Hiss! The Sword of Evil and the Dark Emperor gasped after hearing the Palatial Master's explanation. A mid-grade monarch rank flying sword wasn't scary, but countless of them. If the shadow-splitting sword was as powerful as the Palatial Master said, then the danger today would be much higher. Not bad. I didn't expect you to know your stuff. Sweeping a glance at the Palace Master, Feng Chong nodded his head and said, "This is the Shadow Clone Sword. I seized it from a 9th-grade human sovereign. Now I'll use it to kill you guys. Die with no regrets?" Ningyu took a step forward with the red demon sword in hand and said coldly, "You're too arrogant to kill me with a mid-grade monarch rank flying sword." "I'm arrogant?" Feng Chong pointed at himself and said, "If I was arrogant, you'd be dead by now." As soon as he finished speaking, Feng Chong dashed out with the shadow-splitting sword in his hand. Whoosh! As he dashed out, Feng Chong brandished the Shadow Clone's sword in his hand. With a wave of the Shadow Clone sword, the original Shadow Clone sword split into 2, 2 into 4, and 4 into 8. Moreover, this division was still going on. In a short span of time, one Shadow Clone sword had already turned into 32 Shadow Clones. 32 shadow-splitting swords surrounded Ningyu tightly in the middle, airtight. Attack! There was only one thought in Feng Chang's mind, and that was to kill Ningyu as soon as possible. Whoosh! 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 Shoo! The 32 shadow-splitting swords did not come out in full force. Instead, 5 of them flew out and attacked Ningyu from 5 different directions. Red Demon Sword. Ningyu was not a hothead. Although the Shadow Clone Sword was a mid-grade monarch rank flying sword, the Red Demon Sword was no pushover. Strictly speaking, the level of the Red Demon Sword was definitely superior to the Shadow Clone Sword. Ding ding ding. 3 crisp sounds rang out as Ningyu struck down the 3 swords. Swoosh! There were a total of 5 shadow clones. 3 of them were struck down by Ningyu's Red Demon Sword, while the remaining 2 swiftly arrived in front of Ningyu and pierced fiercely towards Ningyu's heart. Ding! Ding! The same crisp sound rang out. What happened next caused Feng Chang's mouth to gape. He was a little dumbfounded. Feng Chang realized that the remaining 2 flying swords couldn't even pierce through Ningyu's heart. What was going on? Feng Chang was puzzled. Ningyu was only a 3rd-grade supreme martial artist. Why was his body so freakishly tough? It's all thanks to the phantom armor. Ningyu took out another Xingyang pill, threw it into his mouth, and chewed slowly. The phantom armor was a defensive monarch rank armor. A mere mid-grade monarch rank flying sword couldn't break it at all. Go! Everyone go! Fang Chang refused to believe it. He roared after the 5 shadow clone swords were struck down in the first round. Fang Chang didn't believe that Ningyu had such a strong defense. If that was the case, Ningyu definitely wouldn't be so afraid. Swoosh! The remaining 27 shadow clone swords flew out uniformly and arrived in front of Ningyu in an instant. Ningyu wasn't someone who relied solely on the phantom armor. On one hand, he relied on the phantom armor to deal with the shadow clone swords, and on the other hand, he waved the red demon sword to fight the shadow clone swords. Ding, ding, ding. Almost every few seconds, a shadow clone sword would be struck down. In just a few minutes, out of the 27 shadow clone swords, only 2 were left. Ah! Fang Chang couldn't take it anymore. He stomped on the ground, grabbed one of the shadow clone swords, and attacked Ningyu. As for the other shadow clone sword, it was fighting with the red demon sword. The red demon sword was a flying sword that had a spiritual body, and it was controlled by the red demon sword. The shadow clone swords were only mid-grade monarch rank flying swords. They were far from giving birth to a spiritual body, so how could they be a match for the red demon sword? The result was obvious. Not long after, the shadow clone swords were struck down by the red demon sword, and they lost their ability to fight. Without the protection of the red demon sword, Ningyu's ability to fight decreased slightly. He didn't have much confidence against Fang Chang, who had a mid-grade monarch rank flying sword. Sapling, it's up to you now. It wasn't scary if you weren't confident. What was scary was not having a chance. Clearly, Ningyu wasn't that kind of person. After using the phantom armor to block Fang Chang's powerful attack, Ningyu flicked his sleeves and threw the sapling out. The shadow clone sword struck the phantom armor, but just like before, they didn't break it. It's a defensive armor. Fang Chang had just realized that Ningyu was wearing a defensive armor when the sapling arrived in front of him. Not good. Fang Chang was no fool. When the sapling attacked him just now, he had vaguely guessed the sapling's true identity. He just didn't have any concrete evidence. Now that he saw the sapling again, Fang Chang was finally sure that the sapling was the world tree. The world tree had a fatal suppressive effect on Danzhong. No wonder, Ning, you always looked so confident. You want to use the world tree to defeat me? It won't be that easy. Since the world tree had a fatal suppressive effect on Danzhong had been researching how to counter the sapling for many years. After several hundred years of research, Danzhong had finally found a way to counter the world tree. Possession. Only by possessing a body and temporarily breaking away from Danzhong's identity could he achieve a large degree of immunity against the world tree. Otherwise, he might very well be killed by the world tree today. Fang Chang was very clear about the terror of the world tree. Whether or not he could counter the world tree would depend on this method. Thinking of this, Fang Chang's eyes flickered and finally stopped on the sword of evil. The 100 Flowers Palace mistress was a woman, the Dark Emperor was a dog, and Ningyu had the aura of the world tree. From this, it seemed that only one person was the best choice, the sword of evil. As long as he could possess Danzhong quickly, he could counter the sapling. Fang Chang gritted his teeth and charged at the sword of evil. Sword of evil, retreat. Ningyu knew what Fang Chang was thinking. He squeezed his mouth and shouted, "Run." Raising his eyebrows, Fang Chang said sinisterly, "In front of me, you won't even have the chance to escape." Chi. Fang Chang knew the severity of the situation. He exerted all his strength in order to reach Sword Nefarious as soon as possible so that he could possess Sword Nefarious' body. Damn it! Phantom armor. Seeing that Fang Chang was determined to possess the sword of evil, Ningyu cursed in his heart. He quickly took off the phantom armor and threw it at the sword of evil. Pa! Chapter 1163. A Trap. Ah! Fang Chong let out a hysterical roar when he saw the phantom armor on the Sword of Evil. Fang Chang's lungs were about to explode from anger. If he couldn't possess the Sword of Evil, he wouldn't be able to deal with the World Tree. If he couldn't deal with the World Tree, his life would be in danger. I have to possess him. Fang Chang's eyes flickered as he scanned his surroundings. Swoosh! Suddenly, Fang Chang's gaze landed on the Dark Emperor. I'm the Dark Emperor. The Dark Emperor cursed when he saw Fang Chong staring at him strangely. I'm AF * King Dog. How dare you try to possess me? In order to stop Fang Chong from possessing him, the Dark Emperor admitted that he was a dog. Swoosh! However, even if the Dark Emperor admitted that he was a dog, it wouldn't change anything. Fang Chong tore through the void and arrived before the Dark Emperor. Buzz! His body gradually turned illusory as he turned into an afterimage and entered the Dark Emperor's body. Damn it! Ning Yu couldn't help but curse when he saw Fang Chong enter the Dark Emperor's body. The Dark Emperor was only a third-grade intermediate human supreme. Rather than letting Fang Chong possess the Dark Emperor, he might as well let Fang Chong possess the Sword of Evil. After all, the Sword of Evil was an 8th-grade intermediate human supreme. His senses were much stronger than the Dark Emperor's. But now, Ningyu had no other choice. Taking a deep breath, Ningyu said in a deep voice, Sword of Evil, Palace Master Bai Hua, think of a way to seal the underground pill cavern to prevent any future troubles. Then protect me. Ning Yu also turned into an afterimage and entered the Dark Emperor's body. The Sword of Evil and the Dark Emperor exchanged glances. They could see the shock in each other's eyes. They wanted to help Ningyu, but just as Ningyu thought, they had no other choice but to take the risk. Go and protect Ningyu. I'll activate the remaining 100 Flowers array. I'll be able to seal the pill cavern in half an hour at most. Palatial Lord Centauria was very strict in her work. She got the Sword of Evil to protect Ningyu while she sealed the pill cavern. This way, he could kill 2 birds with 1 stone. Not only could he cut off the connection between the pill cavern and the outside world, he could also ensure that Ningyu was safe and sound. Be careful. After saying this, the Sword of Evil leaped to Ningyu's side. Using his powerful perception, the Sword of Evil paid close attention to the changes in his surroundings. If there was even the slightest movement, he would react immediately. At the same time, within the Dark Emperor's body. To be more precise, it was in the Dark Emperor's Sea of Consciousness. Ningyu, the Dark Emperor, and Fang Chong. The 3 of them were in a triangular formation. Among them, Ningyu and the Dark Emperor were in the same camp, while Fang Chong was in a separate camp. How could it be that easy to take over my body? The Dark Emperor said fiercely. Fang Chong, I advise you to surrender. Otherwise, I will devour you. Fang Chong licked his lips and said coldly, Anyone that I, Fang Chong, have set my eyes on will never be able to escape from my palm. I'm sorry. Ningyu shrugged and said, The Dark Emperor is a purple gold sky devouring hound, not a human. I think you might be mistaken. There's no difference between a human and a dog, Fang Chong said coldly. I have to remind you that the sapling can restrain you in the outside world. It can also restrain you in the Sea of Consciousness. Shaking his head, Ningyu waved his sleeves, and the sapling appeared in front of him. Looking at the sapling in front of Ningyu, Fang Chang's expression was gloomy. No one knew what he was thinking. In truth, Fang Chong knew better than anyone else. If he couldn't successfully take over the Dark Emperor before Ningyu, it would be impossible for him to succeed under Ningyu's nose. Since he couldn't restrain the world tree through possession, he might as well try to tempt it. Ningyu, I'm the person in charge of the Eastern Expedition Army in the Great Xia Kingdom. As long as you promise not to use the World Tree to deal with me, I will give you a large number of unconscious pill puppets. Fong Chong rolled his eyes and said, in ancient times the world tree could devour and produce shenyang pills. According to the records, the world tree would drop a large number of shenyang pills with a casual shake. Oh. Ningyu raised his eyebrows and said calmly, how many unconscious pill puppets do you have? Hand them all over, or you should know the consequences. I can't hand them over, because those unconscious pill puppets are all in the underground pill cavern. Fong Chong said, don't talk to me about that. You have two choices right now. First, take out a large number of unconscious pill puppets for the sapling to devour. Second, die. As the word die fell, Ningyu's aura burst forth from his body and pressed down on Fong Chong. Ningyu, don't go too far. This is that darn dog's sea of consciousness. If we really fight, I have a way to destroy it. Fong Chong said coldly, the reason why I agreed to give you the unconscious pill puppets is because you are a talent. I want to, noisy. Ningyu's eyes turned cold as he dashed out. The reason why Fong Chong said so much was because he was worried in his heart. Once such thoughts were born, they would never go away. Ningyu grasped this opportunity and dashed out, throwing a punch at Fong Chong. Bam! A dull sound echoed as Ningyu's fist landed on Fong Chang's chest. Not good. Feeling the force of the punch, Ningyu hurriedly retreated. I've been tricked. Fong Chang's lips curled upward as he displayed his wisdom as the person in charge of the Great Xia Kingdom's Eastern Expedition Army. Fong Chang's figure turned illusionary as he appeared beside the Dark Emperor. He clenched his left fist and threw it at the Dark Emperor's head. Bang! The intense pain from his head caused the Dark Emperor's eyes to turn dull. Hee, Ningyu, when I successfully possess this darn dog, it will be your death. A sinister laughter came from Fong Chang's mouth. Sapling. Ningyu knew the severity of the situation. He immediately communicated with the sapling, trying to get it to deal with Fong Chong. This was the Dark Emperor's sea of consciousness. There was no way he could fight Fong Chong head-on here. If Fong Chong gave up, the consequences would be unimaginable. Once his sea of consciousness was destroyed, the Dark Emperor would be done for. Whoosh! Hearing Ningyu's words, the sapling turned into a blur and appeared beside Fong Chong, slashing his left wrist. Kacha! As soon as the sapling left, a crisp sound could be heard. How is this possible? Fong Chong lowered his head and looked at his palm. His mouth was agape, and his face was filled with disbelief. He had been too careless. Not long ago, Fong Chang's right hand was severed by the sapling, and now his left hand was severed in the same way. In just a few minutes, Fong Chong, a 9th grade human sovereign, had lost both his left and right hand. After losing his right arm, Fong Chang's battle prowess dropped from 9th grade human sovereign to 8th grade pinnacle. Now that he had lost his left arm, Fong Chang's battle prowess dropped from 8th grade pinnacle to 7th grade pinnacle. Even if Ningyu didn't have the world tree, Fong Chong was still no match for Ningyu. Death was right in front of him. Chapter 1164. Changes may occur if we delay. I'll give you one last chance. Hand over the unconscious pill in your body. Otherwise, no one can save you. Since Fong Chong was only left with the strength of an initial phase 7th grade sovereign, Ningyu felt slightly relieved. With Fong Chang's combat strength, it was impossible for him to pose a substantial threat to Ningyu. Ha ha ha. Fong Chong threw his head back and laughed maniacally. Soon after, he coldly said, I've already told you that I don't have any pill puppets with me. I need to enter the pill cavern to help you find them. Without the unintentional knowledge pill puppet, there's no point in keeping you around. Curling his lips, Ningyu's figure gradually became illusory. Ningyu disappeared a moment ago, and then appeared in front of Fong Chong in the next moment. He clenched his right fist and punched at Fong Chang's heart. Ningyu had never held back against an extremely dangerous pill puppet like Fong Chong. Having lost both his hands, Fong Chong was no longer the same Fong Chong. How could Fong Chong be a match for Ningyu in his current state? The spirit is willing, but the strength is insufficient. Bang! Ningyu's fist smashed into Fong Chang's heart, sending him flying back several meters. Good chance. The Dark Emperor was waiting for this moment. Although he couldn't possess Fong Chong, he could refine Fong Chong. Fong Chong was a soul Dan puppet. As long as he was completely refined, the Dark Sovereign's perception would experience a qualitative leap. In the future, even if he encountered a 9th grade sovereign, the Dark Emperor would be able to detect their exact location. And this ability could not be achieved by the law of space. The law of space could only detect the specific location of a peak 8th grade human supreme martial artist. 9th grade human supreme martial artist? Just a little bit more. Emperor of the Dark World, don't just focus on the direction of the devouring. Think of a way to pry open his mouth. I want to know how many Dan puppet there are in the pill cave below. Ningyu felt that it was necessary to remind the Dark Emperor. After all, Fong Chong was only one of the pill puppets. If he was killed, there was still the possibility of Yuan Chong or Zheng Chong appearing. No problem. Give me 10 minutes. After saying this, the Dark Emperor fell silent and began to refine Fong Chong wholeheartedly. As for Ningyu, he left the Dark Emperor's sea of consciousness with a flicker. Ningyu, where's Fong Chong? Seeing Ningyu emerge from the Dark Emperor's sea of consciousness, the Sword of Evil said anxiously. In the Dark Emperor's sea of consciousness, Ningyu replied, whoosh. Hearing Ningyu's words, the Sword of Evil's expression changed drastically. Fong Chong was a 9th grade mortal sovereign. Wouldn't leaving him in the Dark Emperor's consciousness mean that the Dark Emperor would die? I'll go help. The Sword of Evil stomped his feet on the ground, ready to rush out. Pa! However, Nefarious Sword hadn't even charged out when Ningyu slapped him on the shoulder and said, Fong Chang's problem has been resolved. Go and recuperate. I'll see if the palace mistress has sealed the exit of the pill cave. Ignoring the Sword of Evil's reaction, Ningyu turned around and walked towards the palace master. Looking at Ningyu's departing figure, the Sword of Evil was dumbfounded. A 9th grade mortal sovereign, Fong Chong, was killed. At this moment, the Sword of Evil's expression was no different from seeing a ghost. Ningyu was an initial 3rd grade mortal sovereign. Although the Dark Emperor's cultivation was slightly higher than Ningyu's, he was only a middle 3rd grade mortal sovereign. How could the two of them kill Fong Chong in such a short period of time? While the Sword of Evil was pondering, Ningyu had already arrived beside the palace master. Looking at the beads of sweat on the palace master's forehead, Ningyu asked, Do you need Xingyang pills? Lifting her head to look at Ningyu, the palace master said, If you still have more Shenyang pills, give me 3 more. Ningyu's face darkened. The palace master really dared to say that. After a series of battles, he only had 3 Shenyang pills left. Originally, he had 5 Shenyang pills, but he used up 2 in the battle with Fong Chong. Now, Ningyu only had 3 Shenyang pills. Ningyu was a little speechless when the palace master asked for all of them. Here. However, since he had already said it, there was no reason for Ningyu to go back on his words. With a flick of his wrist, the 3 Shenyang pills flew towards the palace master. Pa! Raising her right hand, the palace master held the 3 Shenyang pills firmly in her hand. Thank you. Give me a moment, and I'll be able to seal the underground elixir cave completely. After thanking her, the palace master tossed the 3 Shenyang pills into her mouth and chewed for refinement. Ningyu's lips twitched. To be honest, 3 Shenyang pills weren't enough for the palace master to recover to her peak condition. The reason why Ningyu handed the remaining 3 Shenyang pills to the palace master was because she was trying her best to seal the elixir cave. Whether the elixir cave could be sealed or not meant that Dongwu College wouldn't be in danger. Ning Yu knew the severity of the matter. Therefore, he chose to hand the 3 Xingyang pills to the palace master. Drip, drip. Time passed by the seconds and minutes. The Dark Emperor was refining Feng Chang. Ning Yu and the Sword of Evil were fully focused on recuperating while the palace master was busy sealing the elixir cave. Everything seemed to be progressing in an orderly manner. Russell. What Ning Yu and the rest didn't know was that in a dense forest to the west of the capital, a few figures rapidly streaked through the void. Not long later, those figures landed on a spacious clearing. Taking a closer look, there were a total of 4 cultivators, and the cultivation of these cultivators were all grade 5 human sovereigns. A grade 5 human sovereign wasn't terrifying. What was terrifying was that these 4 cultivators were 3 absolute geniuses. In other words, the battle prowess of these 4 cultivators could contend with an 8th grade human sovereign. Apart from the 3 absolute geniuses, the void was faintly trembling. Crack! The void trembled to its limits and suddenly split open. A black-robed old man appeared. Great Desolation, Venerable. We're about a dozen minutes away from the capital of the Great Xia Kingdom. Should we continue? Seeing the black-robed old man, the 3 absolute geniuses were respectful and didn't even dare to speak loudly. Grade 9 human sovereign. This Great Desolation Venerable was also a grade 9 human sovereign. Furthermore, Great Desolation Venerable's battle prowess was clearly stronger than Feng Chang's. That was because Great Desolation Venerable's cultivation was at the pinnacle of initial grade 9 human sovereign, while Feng Chang was only an initial grade 9 human sovereign. The 4 of you go to the capital first. When you see Lu Wei, take her away immediately. Slightly frowning, Great Desolation Venerable said, I'm going to meet an old friend. I hope you guys won't disappoint me. As he finished his words, Great Desolation Venerable's figure gradually turned illusory and soon disappeared. After Great Desolation Venerable left, one of the grade 5 human sovereigns asked in doubt, Great Desolation Venerable is a grade 9 human sovereign. How can he have an old friend in a place like the Great Xia Kingdom? Don't be careless. Another grade 5 human sovereign said in a deep voice, Some powerful cultivators have weird tempers. When they have no hope of advancing, they will return to their hometowns. Who knows? The old friend that Great Desolation Venerable is going to meet might be from the Great Xia Kingdom. Chapter 1165. Kill. Capital, Dongwu College. In the courtyard. Boom! The Dark Emperor suddenly opened his eyes, and his aura soared into the sky. Late stage 3rd grade. Human sovereign. After 10 minutes of refining, the Dark Emperor had finally refined the 9th grade mortal sovereign, Feng Chang. His cultivation also rose from mid-stage 3rd grade human sovereign to late-stage 3rd grade human sovereign. Whew! Letting out a breath, the worry in the Dark Emperor's heart lessened slightly. To be honest, even the Dark Emperor found it unbelievable that he could refine Feng Chang in 10 minutes. After all, Feng Chang was a 9th grade human sovereign, and it was extremely difficult to refine him. Right now, even if I encounter a late phase 8th grade sovereign, I will be able to confront and even kill him. Similar to Ningyu, the Dark Emperor was one of the 5 absolute geniuses. The 5 absolute geniuses weren't to be trifled with. It wasn't difficult for them to challenge those of a higher level. Ningyu, I have something to discuss with you. Feeling the energy ripple in his sea of consciousness, the Dark Emperor rolled his eyes and stood in front of Ningyu. I wonder if you have any extra Shenyang pills on you? 1. I only need 1 Shenyang pill. After refining Feng Chang, not only did the Dark Emperor raise his cultivation to late-stage 3rd grade human sovereign, he was only half a step away from peak 3rd grade human sovereign. In other words, if the Dark Emperor was given some extra energy, there was a high chance that he could reach peak 3rd grade human sovereign. Do you think I can mass-produce Shenyang pills? Opening his eyes, Ningyu rolled his eyes at the Dark Emperor. I've used up all the Shenyang pills on me. If you need more, ask me 3 days later. It'll be too late by then. The Dark Emperor was a little disappointed. This was the best chance for him to reach peak 3rd grade human sovereign. If he missed this opportunity, he wouldn't get another one. What cucumber or cow? Let me ask you, did you manage to get any useful information from Fangchang? Ningyu asked. After organizing his thoughts, the Dark Emperor asked, What news do you wish to know? Nonsense. What else could it be? Are there any more powerful pill puppets in the underground pill cave? Ningyu rolled his eyes. This, you don't have to worry about it. According to the information that I obtained from Fangchang, the Eastern Expedition Army in Danzhong had already retreated from the Great Xia Kingdom. After recalling for a while, the Dark Emperor said, However, there's one thing I can be sure of. You're already in the top 10 of the must-kill list in Dan Ming's Eastern Expedition Army. There's a must-kill list in the pill furnace? Ningyu asked, puzzled. Of course. All the humans who are able to make it onto the must-kill list are all extremely sick with high cultivation states. Only you have the lowest cultivation state. The Dark Emperor nodded his head. Seal. Right at this moment, the palace master waved her hands repeatedly while she shouted in a low voice. As palatial mistress Bai Hua shouted, the situation in the courtyard changed. Instantly, all the primal energy gathered in front of her. The yuan qi gathered into a small vortex. The vortex grew bigger and bigger. In the end, it drilled into the ground and disappeared in front of Ningyu and the Dark Emperor. After the vortex disappeared, palatial mistress Bai Hua's vision blurred and she fell to the ground. Swish! Ningyu reacted quickly and caught palatial mistress Bai Hua when she fell to the ground. I've already sealed the exit of the pill cave. I'm too tired. This soul force needs to sleep. Before she fainted, palatial mistress Bai Hua said, Also, remember your promise. If I don't wake up in a month, please make a trip to 100 Flowers Palace. Before she finished speaking, palatial mistress Bai Hua's eyes rolled and she fainted. Ningyu was a little speechless as he watched palatial mistress Bai Hua faint. The region where 100 Flowers Palace was located was extremely dangerous. With his current cultivation state, rushing to 100 Flowers Palace was undoubtedly courting death. I hope you can wake up in a month, Ningyu murmured. You better stay away from me. Suddenly, palatial mistress Bai Hua, who was in Ningyu's arms, opened her eyes and said coldly, Otherwise I'll cripple you. Hiss! Hearing palatial mistress Bai Hua's words, Ningyu couldn't help but shiver and quickly retreated. No, you're not palatial mistress Bai Hua. You're Xialan. Just after taking a few steps back, Ningyu came to his senses. All this while, Xialan's body had been controlled by palatial mistress Bai Hua. Now that palatial mistress Bai Hua was heavily injured and urgently needed to recuperate, the control of her body was naturally returned to Xialan. Of course I'm Xialan. Xialan said in a low voice, I need royal-grade origin crystals, a large amount of royal-grade origin crystals. Although her cultivation had reached the middle phase 8th grade sovereign realm, Xialan knew that her cultivation wasn't stable. Only by refining more royal-grade origin crystals would she be able to completely stabilize her cultivation state. She didn't expect that handing over control of her body to palatial mistress Bai Hua would allow her to quickly reach intermediate 8th grade sovereign. In the past, Xialan wouldn't have dared to imagine that she could reach intermediate 8th grade sovereign in such a short period of time. I don't have any more royal-grade origin crystals. Shrugging, Ningyu said, Although this was a cruel reality, Ningyu had no choice but to face it. Right now, not to mention royal-grade origin crystals. Ningyu didn't even have a single king-grade origin crystal on him. Are you sure you're not joking with me? Xiaolon exclaimed. Xiaolon knew very well that Ningyu had a lot of Shenyang pills and royal-grade origin crystals. Now that he said he didn't have any royal-grade origin crystals, who would believe him? It's up to you whether you believe me or not. Shrugging, Ningyu said, Your cultivation state isn't very stable yet. I advise you to find a place to recuperate and stabilize your cultivation state in a few hours. I don't need you to teach me. Glaring at Ningyu, Xiaolon stomped on the ground and flew out of the courtyard. Seeing Xiaolon leaving, Ningyu did not stop him. After all, the pill cave had been sealed and the experts of the Corpsine sect and the Blood God Palace had been eliminated. In such a huge capital, Xiaolon could do whatever she wanted as long as he, Venerable Sword Evil, and the others didn't do anything. If an intermediate 8th grade sovereign couldn't dominate the capital, then it would be a little ridiculous. Boom! However, reality had proven that some words were better left unsaid. Just as this thought rose in Ningyu's mind, he saw a figure rushing over from outside the courtyard and landing heavily on the ground. Xiaolon. This figure was none other than Xiaolon, the 8th grade middle human supreme realm Xiaolon. The sudden change had caused Ningyu's face to turn dark. The experts of the Blood God Palace, Corpse Sect, and Pill Puppet in the Great Xia Kingdom had all been dealt with. Who else could harm Xiaolon? Uft! Xiaolon spewed out a mouthful of blood and his aura weakened. From an intermediate 8th grade sovereign to an initial 8th grade sovereign, it was still dropping. Rustle! 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 Chapter 1166. Merciless Who? Looking at the 4 figures that suddenly appeared, Ningyu's heart couldn't help but skip a beat. Although the 4 cultivators in front of him didn't have high cultivation, only a 5th grade human supreme, Ningyu knew that their battle prowess wasn't weak. Hee, it doesn't matter who we are. What's important is that you know Lu Wei. The leading young man smiled and said, Swoosh! Hearing that, Ningyu's face completely darkened. So the target of these 4 cultivators wasn't Xiaolon or him, but Lu Wei. If I'm not wrong, you should be from the Sacred Heaven sect, Ningyu said in a low voice. Clap, clap, clap. The young man who spoke just now clapped his hands and said, That's right, we are indeed from the Sacred Heaven sect. If you know what's good for you, hand over Lu Wei as soon as possible, because we don't want to kill. Otherwise, speaking up to this point, the young man's eyes became extremely cold and he suddenly unleashed his aura. Rumble! An extremely terrifying aura emanated from the young man and pressed down on Ningyu. Peak 5th grade human supreme, a triple ultimate genius. Feeling the terrifying aura emanating from the young man, Ningyu's eyes narrowed. Swoosh! At this moment, the Dark Emperor's 4 hooves stomped on the ground and his body instantly shot out. Roar! Letting out a loud roar, the Dark Emperor's aura also emerged and collided with the young man's aura. TSK, TSK. When the 2 terrifying auras collided, even the void let out a sizzling sound. Purple gold sky devouring hound. As a peerless genius of the Sacred Heaven sect, she had done some research on sky-devouring hounds, because the Sacred Heaven sect had a sky-devouring hound. Now that he saw a purple gold sky-devouring hound, she made up his mind. Capture it alive. No matter what, he had to capture this purple gold sky-devouring hound and bring it back to the Sacred Heaven sect. Perhaps the sky-devouring hound of the Sacred Heaven sect would reward him with a lot of cultivation resources. The 3 of you go and deal with Ningyu. Remember, you must force Lu Wei's whereabouts. Zhou Ba cracked his neck and said, As for this purple gold sky devouring hound, leave it to me. As soon as the word pay was uttered, Zhou Bu's figure gradually became illusory. In an instant, he appeared in front of the Dark Emperor and started fighting with him. The Dark Emperor was a third-grade human supremacy stage genius, while Zhou, she was a third-grade human supremacy stage genius. Logically speaking, there was not much of a difference in their strength. However, Zhou, she was a peak fifth-grade human sovereign, while the Dark Emperor was only a late third-grade human sovereign. There was a small grade difference between the two, causing the Dark Emperor to be at a disadvantage. Ningyu, tell me where Lu Wei is, or I'll show you why flowers are so red. The battle between Zhou Sei and the Dark Emperor did not affect the other three fifth-grade human supreme martial artists. Among the three fifth-grade human sovereigns, one was a peak fifth-grade human sovereign, while the other two were late fifth-grade human sovereigns. The martial artist who spoke was called Gao Lin, a peak fifth-grade human supreme. I have a question. Glancing at the Dark Emperor's battlefield, Ningyu said in a deep voice, "Why do you guys have to find Lu Wei? Why is the Divine Heaven Sect looking for Lu Wei?" In order to find Lu Wei, the Divine Heaven Sect had sent experts to the Great Xia Kingdom time and time again. In total, there had been 3 to 4 times. Other than the first time, Ningyu had been by Lu Wei's side for the rest of the times. Otherwise, with Lu Wei's combat strength, she would have been captured long ago. "I'm sorry, I can't tell you about this." Pouting, Gao Lin said, "If you want to know, you can return to the Divine Heaven Sect with us." Sword of Evil, how much combat strength do you have now? Return to the Divine Heaven Sect with Gao Lin? What a joke! Ningyu had never thought about this. The reason why he asked Gao Lin was because he wanted to buy some time for the Sword Devil Venerable to recover. Actually, before Gao Lin and the others appeared, the Sword of Evil was about to recover to its peak. However, the appearance of Gao Lin and the others caused some trouble for the Sword of Evil's recovery, causing the 1-minute recovery time to be increased to 2 minutes. If I make a move now, I can easily kill those 2 late phase 5th grade sovereigns. But for the remaining 2 pinnacle 5th grade sovereigns, I can only contend with them but not kill them. The Sword of Evil answered. Make a move now. We can't wait any longer. Ningyu knew the severity of the problem. Killing one was one. If an even more powerful expert appeared later, wouldn't they have to bear the consequences? So kill if you can and don't hold back. Anyway, the Divine Heaven Sect definitely didn't have good intentions in capturing Lu Wei. Otherwise, they wouldn't have sent so many people. Moreover, each time they came, their cultivation would be higher and stronger. If this continued, the next time, there would probably be a 9th grade human supreme. No problem, the Sword of Evil responded. His eyes turned cold, and his body dashed out. Oh no, retreat! Gao Lin's perception was not weak. Before the Sword of Evil made a move, he didn't know how strong the Sword of Evil was. Now that the Sword of Evil had made a move, he realized the severity of the problem. The Sword of Evil's strength was not weaker than his. In some sense, the Sword of Evil was slightly stronger than him. After all, the Sword of Evil was a genuine peak 8th grade human supreme. Swoosh! Swoosh! Gao Lin's words were very effective. The other 2 peak 5th grade human supreme retreated immediately after hearing Gao Lin's words. In the Divine Heaven Sect, Gao Lin was famous for his powerful perception. For Gao Lin to make a move, it was enough to show that the Sword of Evil was not weak. Poof! Poof! However, it was already too late for the Sacred Heaven Sect's 5th grade supreme martial artist to retreat. The Sword of Evil was quick to react. He came in front of them in an instant, clenched his fists, and suddenly punched out. The 2 fists brought with them a violent primordial chi wind, and hit the chests of the 2 peak 5th grade human supreme. With a muffled sound, the 2 peak 5th grade human supreme spat out a big mouthful of blood at the same time, and their aura dropped sharply. Swoosh! At this time, a fierce look appeared in Ningyu's eyes, and he immediately dashed out. Holding the red demon sword, Ningyu stabbed down fiercely. Stab! Stab! There was some primordial chi jumping on the red demon's sword. Under the horrified gazes of the two-peak 5th grade human supreme, the sword stabbed into their hearts. Buzz! A terrifying, devouring force erupted from the red demon's sword. In just a few seconds, the two late-stage 5th grade supreme martial artists from the Sacred Heaven sect were completely devoured and turned into 2 pieces of meat. Whoosh! The sudden change caused Josei and Gao Lin to stop in their tracks. Their mouths were wide open, and they stared at the flesh under Ningyu's feet in disbelief. Their eyes were full of horror. Gulp. After a while, Josei and Gao Lin swallowed at the same time. Before they came, they would never have imagined that their 2 late 5th grade Sovereign Realm companions would be killed in such a short period of time. Chapter 1167. A string of 3 crack crack. Clenching their fists, Josei and Gao Lin looked at each other and saw the deep anger in each other's eyes. In the Divine Heaven sect, the 4 of them had a very good relationship. Now that 2 of their companions were killed, how could they tolerate it? However, seeing the sword of evil beside Ningyu, Josei and the others looked gloomy and didn't make a move immediately. Ningyu, I'm asking you one last time. Lu Wei, are you going to hand over or not? Taking a deep breath, Josei said in a deep voice. Noisy, Ningyu said indifferently. However, in the ears of Josei and the others, it sounded so gloomy. Sword of evil, don't leave anyone alive. Kill them without mercy. Understood. Sword of evil nodded and moved toward Josei and the others step by step. Looking at the sword of evil approaching him, Gao Lin's eyes flickered and he said in a low voice, What should we do? Except for Ningyu, kill them without mercy. With a low shout, Josei rose from the ground and was the first to rush toward the sword of evil. Relatively speaking, Josei's strength was much stronger than before. Gao Lin might still be afraid of the sword of evil, but Josei was not. In Josei's opinion, the sword of evil couldn't do anything to him. At most, they could be evenly matched. He would hold off the sword of evil while Gao Lin dealt with the Dark Emperor and Ningyu. There was nothing wrong with that. Swoosh! With Josei defending him against the sword of evil, the pressure in Gao Lin's heart was relieved a little. With the pressure reduced and the worries gone, Gao Lin rushed out instantly and waved his hands. Suddenly, a fist radiance flew out and arrived in front of Ningyu in a flash. Facing such a horrifying palm print, Ningyu didn't dare to be careless. He clenched his right hand into a fist and slashed down a heavenly sword radiance. Bang! The sword radiance and the fist radiance collided and both disappeared between heaven and earth. Not bad. Very good. But you won't be so lucky next. He was evenly matched with Ningyu in one move, but Gao Lin was not angry. Instead, he punched out again. Bang! With the same movement, Ningyu waved the red demon sword and the sword radiance touched the palm print for the second time. Without a doubt, the sword radiance and the palm print disappeared for the second time. We can't continue like this. Gao Lin was not a pushover. 2 consecutive palm prints failed to force Ningyu back. So he came up with a plan. Since I can't defeat you, then I'll go find your friend. Gao Lin was not sloppy at all. He blasted out another palm print to force Ningyu back, and then his whole body turned into a residual shadow, rushing toward Xiaolon. When they first arrived, Xiaolon had already been defeated by them. As long as they could capture Xiaolon, why would Ningyu not submit? Other than Ningyu, he could also go to Danmu College to capture some students. He believed that Ningyu would be very cautious. Oh no! Xiaolon, run! Seeing Gao Lin turn around and rush toward Xiaolon, Ningyu shouted in a hurry. Run? Where are you going? In the process of running, Gao Lin didn't forget to look back and taunt. I forgot to tell you, this girl has been poisoned by the Divine Heaven sect's unique poison. Even if I don't kill her, she won't live for more than a few days. Pa! Gao Lin came to Xielan's side in an instant. He grabbed Xielan's shoulder and lifted her up. Ningyu, I will ask you one last time. Lu Wei, are you going to hand her over or not? Gao Lin said coldly. Ningyu's face was extremely gloomy. Ningyu knew that if he dared to say no, Gao Lin would kill Xielan immediately. Damn it! How could I forget about Xielan? Cursing, Ningyu began to communicate with the law of space and the sapling. As time went by, the corners of Ningyu's mouth gradually lifted into a smile. Ha ha ha. In the end, Ningyu even laughed out loud. Have you lost your mind? Seeing Ningyu laugh, Gao Lin was slightly stunned. His companion was about to be killed and he could still laugh? How big of a heart was he? Ningyu, since you don't care about her life or death, I will send her to the next world. Ignoring Ningyu's laughter, Gao Lin exerted some force in his right hand and threw Xielan into the air. Then a cold gleam shot out from his eyes and went straight for Xielan. Crack! However, just as the cold gleam shot out from Gao Lin's eyes, the space around Xielan suddenly cracked. After the space cracked, Xielan was naturally swallowed by the void. What's going on? Such a change was obviously beyond Gao Lin's expectations. His goal was to kill Xielan and deter Ningyu. But now, not only did Xielan fail to kill Ningyu, but she also failed to deter Ningyu. Let me tell you what happened. Ningyu took a step forward and came before Gao Lin in the blink of an eye. He said calmly, although your cultivation level is 2 levels higher than mine in terms of the attainment of space, you and I are too far apart. You mean you were the one who saved that woman? Gao Lin's mouth was agape and his face was full of disbelief. You're not that stupid. Ningyu shrugged his shoulders. Soon after, he gripped the red demon's sword and slashed through the air, ruthlessly slashing at Gao Lin's neck. Although Gao Lin was a peak-level 5th grade human supreme genius, Ningyu had already convinced the law of space and the sapling to help Ningyu. With the help of the law of space and the sapling, Ningyu was not afraid of Gao Lin. In the process of advancing, Ningyu and the red demon's sword disappeared at the same time. Buzz! The next moment, Ningyu appeared in front of Gao Lin with the red demon's sword in his hand. Slash! Holding the red demon's sword tightly, Ningyu wrapped all the primordial chi and soul power in his sea of consciousness around the red demon's sword and slashed at Gao Lin's neck with a backhand. Ningyu's slash was extremely powerful, not to mention Gao Lin. Even Zhou Sei might not be able to withstand it. No. Looking at the flying sword that was approaching him, Gao Lin's pupils shrank and his eyes were full of fear. Crack! How could Ningyu let go of Gao Lin? When dealing with an enemy, one could not show any mercy. Ningyu's all-out attack was very powerful. Under Gao Lin's terrified gaze, the red demon's sword pierced into his neck. Then, Ningyu exerted a little force, and a horrible devouring power burst out from the red demon's sword. The devouring power quickly divided into 2 and instantly swallowed Gao Lin, a peak-level 5th grade human supreme. What? When Zhou Sei saw that Gao Lin was easily killed, his expression changed dramatically. Bang! Zhou Sei's momentary daze allowed the Sword of Evil to seize the opportunity. When experts exchanged blows, even the slightest bit of distraction could cause one's body to shatter into pieces. Zhou Sei was fine. He was only hit by the Sword of Evil's sneak attack, but it was not a big deal. Ningyu, you killed 3 of my companions. At this point, Zhou Sei became calm. So calm that it was a little scary. Zhou Sei said calmly, our target is Lu Wei, not you. However, because of your stupidity, you have become the target of the Sacred Heaven sect. Chapter 1168. Clones. Ha ha ha. Hearing Ningyu's words, Zhou, she threw his head back and laughed maniacally. Then he changed the topic and said coldly, "Do you think you can fight me after killing 3 of my companions? To be honest, you're too naive." "Am I naive?" Ningyu frowned slightly. "You only have 1, but we have 3. Swoosh! Swoosh!" The evil sword venerable and the Dark Emperor flew to Ningyu's side and stood on either side. "You have helpers, so do I." Zhou tone was emotionless as he spoke. With that, Zhou Bei waved his sleeve and a crystal ball appeared in his hand. Crack! Raising his right hand, Zhou threw the crystal ball to the ground. With a crisp sound, the crystal ball exploded. Swoosh! As the crystal ball exploded, an illusory figure emerged from the void. Hiss! Ningyu and Venerable Sword Evil sucked in a breath of cold air when they saw the illusory figure that suddenly appeared. A 9th grade human supreme martial artist. The aura emitted from the illusory figure had reached the terrifying 9th grade human supreme martial artist. Humph! You always make me worry. After the 9th grade human supreme martial artist appeared, he scanned the surroundings and snorted. Have your identities been exposed? Apart from the people in this courtyard, no one knows that we're from the divine heaven sect. Zhou, she replied hurriedly. Bang! The illusory figure flicked his sleeve and a cold light flew out, hitting Zhou, she's chest. The tremendous force that came from his chest sent him flying backward and crashing heavily into the ground. Our identities cannot be exposed. To be safe, let's slaughter everyone from Dongwu College. Don't let anyone go. The illusory figure said coldly. Venerable, great desolation, don't worry. I know what to do. Although he was hit by the illusory figure, Zhou, she didn't even dare to breathe heavily and replied respectfully. Venerable, great desolation was a 9th grade human supreme martial artist. Zhou, she was worlds apart from Venerable, great desolation. He definitely wouldn't dare to challenge Venerable, great desolation. Buzz! Zhou Sei tore through the void and dashed out of the courtyard. Wait! Seeing that Zhou, she wanted to leave, Ningyu took a step forward and scolded. You want to leave? Have you asked for our permission? If I want to leave, I'll leave. What can you do about it? Zhou, she curled his lips and said disdainfully, if the Great Desolation Reverend wants to kill you, it would be as easy as blowing off dust. Stop bragging. If the true body of the Great Desolation Reverend were here, I would run away immediately, but, as he spoke, Ningyu briefly paused before he continued, this Great Desolation Venerable is only a clone. Although his aura is comparable to a 9th grade sovereign, his overall strength is only at the pinnacle of 8th grade sovereign. Rumble. Ningyu's words made Zhou, she's heart sink to the bottom. He had thought that his acting skills were good enough to deceive Ningyu. Who would have thought that Ningyu was even more astute than him, seeing through the true nature of the Venerable of Great Wilderness? This Venerable of Great Wilderness was indeed a clone, and his strength was only at the pinnacle of 8th grade sovereign. In fact, he was even slightly weaker than him. Ningyu, although this is the clone of the Great Desolation Reverend, his perception is at the pinnacle of 9th grade sovereign, and his battle experience is also at the pinnacle of 9th grade sovereign. Zhou, she said in a deep voice, if I join hands with the Great Desolation Reverend, killing you will be as easy as pie. Aren't you afraid that your tongue will be bitten by the wind? After a cold voice, Ningyu turned around and said, Sword of Evil, you deal with the clone of the Great Desolation Reverend. The Dark Emperor and I will deal with Zhou Shi. No problem. Swordsman Evil Sword responded and stomped his feet on the ground. Then he dashed forward. The Great Desolation Reverend was a 9th grade sovereign, while this clone only had the battle strength of a pinnacle of 8th grade sovereign. Although the Great Desolation Reverend had more battle experience, it would be extremely difficult for him to kill the Sword of Evil in a short period of time. Today, we will fight side by side again. After exchanging glances with the Dark Emperor, Ningyu held the red demon's sword in his hand and instantly tore through the void to arrive before Zhou Shi. Slash! Violent yuan qi was emitted from the red demon's sword as it slashed at Zhou Shi's neck. Ningyu was aware of Zhou Shi's strength, so he did not hold back and used his full strength in the first move. Whoosh! Seeing Ningyu's attack, the Dark Emperor's figure flickered and a pair of purple gold wings appeared on his back. The wings flapped rapidly and several gusts of wind swept out, attacking Zhou Shi from the side with the help of Ningyu. Child's play. Obviously, Zhou Shi did not take Ningyu and the Dark Emperor seriously. He curled his lips and waved his hands continuously. As Zhou Shi waved his hands, the space in front of him suddenly cracked. Whoosh! As soon as the space cracked, Zhou Shi entered it. Great! Zhou Shi's sudden action made Ningyu overjoyed. To be honest, if Zhou Shi were to fight them head-on, Ningyu did not have much confidence that he could kill him. Now that Zhou Shi had entered the void and was trying to engage in guerrilla warfare, it had completely given Ningyu a chance. Law of space. With a thought, Ningyu began to communicate with the law of space. Zhou Shi was a peak 5th grade human supreme, a triple ultimate genius, but his senses had yet to reach the 9th grade human supreme realm. In this state, Zhou Shi would not be able to hide from the law of space, regardless of whether he entered the void or not. Dark Emperor Wen Zhang to the east attack. After learning Zhou Shi's exact location through the law of space, Ningyu pretended not to know before he transmitted his voice to the Dark Emperor. Whoosh! The Dark Emperor knew that even if he launched a sneak attack, he would not be able to kill Zhou Shi. However, it would not be easy for Zhou Shi to kill him either. Especially under such circumstances, Zhou Shi would not be able to kill him, and he would have a chance to injure Zhou Shi. He found me? Seeing the Dark Emperor flying towards him, Zhou Shi's heart skipped a beat. He had a bad feeling. Zhou Shi was very confident in his ability to hide his aura. When he was in the Sacred Heaven sect, even some 9th grade human Supreme Realm experts could not find his exact location. Therefore, Zhou Shi did not believe that the Dark Emperor had this ability. Whoosh! However, to be safe, Zhou Shi still turned his head and charged towards Ningyu. On the surface, Zhou Shi wanted to attack Ningyu, but in reality, he just wanted to test the Dark Emperor and see if he could find his exact location. It's really a blind cat bumping into a dead mouse. After flying for a few steps, Zhou Shi smirked and said sinisterly. The reason why Zhou Shi was so sure that the Dark Emperor was a blind cat bumping into a dead mouse was because when he moved, the Dark Emperor did not move with him. In other words, the Dark Emperor did not know where he was, and what happened earlier was purely a coincidence. Sacred Heaven Fist. In an instant, Zhou Shi appeared in front of Ningyu. He clenched his right hand into a fist and punched towards Ningyu's head. Sacred Heaven Fist was a profound martial technique of the Sacred Heaven sect. When used to the extreme, it was extremely powerful. In the past, when Zhou Shi was an early-stage 5th grade human Supreme Realm expert, he used Sacred Heaven Fist to kill a late-stage 8th grade human Supreme Realm expert. Chapter 1169. Chi-Chi. Chi-Chi. In order to kill Ningyu in one move, Zhou Sei gathered all the yuan-qi in his sea of consciousness into his fist. The pulsating yuan-qi made a sizzling sound when it came into contact with the air. Zhou Sei's fist brought with it a violent yuan-qi gale as it slammed toward Ningyu's head. Dark Emperor. Just as Zhou Sei's fist was about to land on Ningyu's head, Ningyu suddenly reacted and shouted. Whoosh! Following Ningyu's shout, the Dark Emperor in the distance suddenly turned his head and charged toward Zhou Shi. Humph! It's too late to think of dealing with me now. Zhou Sei snorted and increased his speed again. His right fist was only 1 foot away from Ningyu. At such a close distance, Zhou Se did not believe that Ning Yu could dodge it. Bang! At the critical moment, Ning Yu did not panic. He clenched his right fist and suddenly punched out. A crisp sound rang out. Ning Yu and Zhou Se retreated several feet at the same time. However, judging from the distance they retreated, Zhou Se seemed to have the upper hand. How is this possible? Although Zhou Se had the upper hand, he still could not believe this result. How could Ning Yu block his attack with all his might? When did Ning Yu become so powerful? All kinds of doubts rose in Zhou Se's mind. He was dumbfounded and could not believe it at all. It's not good to be distracted right now. At this moment, Ning Yu's voice rang in Zhou Se's ears. Swoosh! After the voice rang out, Ning Yu's figure became illusory. He leaped to Zhou Se's side and suddenly punched out with a violent Yuanqi gale. Bang! His fist landed on Zhou Se's chest, causing him to retreat in a straight line. Pa! Before Zhou Se could retreat a few steps, the Dark Emperor seized the opportunity and whipped his neck with his tail. Pucci! The intense pain coming from his chest and neck caused Zhou Se to spit out a mouthful of dark red blood. Damn it! The sudden change caused Zhou Ba to clench his fists tightly. His face was filled with viciousness. Careless! He had been too careless. He only cared about fighting with Ning Yu and neglected the Dark Emperor. The Dark Emperor's battle prowess was not much weaker than Ning Yu's. No, I have to think of something. She turned his head to look at the Sword of Evil and the doppelganger of the Great Desolation who were fighting fiercely in midair. His eyeballs rolled as he quickly thought of a countermeasure. The current situation was very crucial for Zhou Se. If he dealt with them properly, he would be able to kill Ning Yu and the Dark Emperor. If he did not handle this properly, he would be buried here today. So, Zhou Se was very careful and didn't dare to be careless. He could only succeed and couldn't fail. Dark Emperor, capture him alive. First, Ning Yu sent a voice transmission to the Dark Emperor. Then he stomped his feet on the ground and charged forward. At this point, Ning Yu finally understood what was going on. He didn't want to ask why the Divine Heaven sect wanted to capture Lu Wei anymore. What he was concerned about was how many more experts the Divine Heaven sect would send over. Zhou Se and the others were 5th grade human supreme martial artists. The doppelganger of the Great Desolation had also reached the pinnacle of 8th grade human supreme martial artist. What Ning Yu wanted to know was if there were any other experts from the Divine Heaven sect in the Great Xia Kingdom. Understood. Hearing Ning Yu's order, the Dark Emperor flapped the purple gold wings on his back and flew out quickly. The Dark Emperor was naturally not a match for Zhou Se when he was at his peak. But now that Zhou Se was severely injured and his strength had dropped a lot, the Dark Emperor could still fight him head-on. Rumble! Ning Yu and the Dark Emperor displayed their powerful battle prowess. They blocked off Zhou Se's path of retreat with one at the front and one at the back. Zhou Se's aura would drop after a period of time. 3 minutes later, Ning Yu's acting skills were fast. He held the red devil sword and suddenly pierced it into Zhou Se's chest. Uft! As soon as the red devil sword pierced into Zhou Se's chest, Ning Yu immediately withdrew it. Thump! After being pierced by the red devil sword, Zhou Se's aura dropped rapidly. In a short period of time, he had already dropped to 3rd grade human supreme martial artist. Moreover, Zhou Se's body fell straight to the back. Zhou Se, I'll give you a chance to live. Tell me if there are any other experts other than you guys. I will kill you all. Ning Yu didn't want to kill Zhou Se. His goal was to ask if there were any other experts. Who would have thought that Zhou Se was so proud? Before Ning Yu finished his sentence, Zhou Se's eyes rolled and he died on the spot. Zhou Se's sudden death made Ning Yu's expression very ugly. Ning Yu could clearly feel that Zhou Se had committed suicide. His 5 viscera and 6 bowels were all ruptured. Even his sea of consciousness was shattered. Go and help the Sword of Evil. Ning Yu wasn't an indecisive person. He knew the severity of the situation. The Sword of Evil was at an absolute disadvantage when fighting with the doppelganger of Venerable Great Desolation. If no one helped, the Sword of Evil would be killed very quickly. Ha ha ha, Venerable Great Desolation. We will accept your doppelganger. Seeing that Ning Yu and the Dark Emperor had come to help, the Sword of Evil laughed. Humph. Can you stop me if I want to leave? With a cold snort, the Venerable Great Desolation forced the Sword of Evil to retreat. Then he tore the void and flew far away. This doppelganger was refined by the Venerable Great Desolation after a lot of effort. It was basically a part of his body. Once the doppelganger was damaged, his strength would drop a lot. Where there's life, there's hope. Moreover, the Venerable Great Desolation had made up his mind. Once he settled the matter at hand, he would immediately head to the capital to capture Ning Yu. If he stayed, it would be a pointless resistance. The loss outweighed the gain. Want to leave? It's not that easy. Ning Yu raised his eyebrows and his body became illusory. Buzz! Buzz! Behind Ning Yu, the Sword of Evil and the Dark Emperor's bodies also became illusory. Uft! Not long after, a figure flew out of the void and landed heavily on the ground. The figure spat out a mouthful of blood and his breath was extremely weak. Ning Yu, I'll remember you. Just you wait. Wiping the blood from the corner of his mouth, the Venerable Great Desolation's eyes emitted a ferocious look. Oh no, retreat! Seeing the Venerable Great Desolation's action, Ning Yu's face changed and he retreated immediately. Boom! Just as Ning Yu and the rest took a few steps back, the Venerable Great Desolation's body grew bigger and finally exploded. Uft! 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 Although it was only a doppelganger, the explosion of the Venerable Great Desolation was still extremely powerful. Ning Yu, the Sword of Evil, the Dark Emperor, and even Xielon, who was far away, spat out a mouthful of blood. Uft! At the same time, in a cave outside the capital of the Great Xia Kingdom, 2 old men sat on stone stools. One of the old men in a black robe widened his eyes and suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood. His face turned pale. Venerable Great Desolation, what's going on? Seeing the Venerable Great Desolation's appearance, the other old man in a gray robe asked doubtfully, It's just a small matter. I have to make a trip to the capital personally. I'll come and talk to you another day. Waving his hand, the Venerable Great Desolation tore open the void and entered. A small matter? Could it be for Ning Yu? Chapter 1170. Chapter 1170. Treasure Vault Swoosh. Great Xia Kingdom, Dongwu College in the courtyard. After the Great Wilderness Supremacy's clone exploded, Ning Yu and the rest heaved a sigh of relief. The worry on their faces was slightly alleviated. One wave had yet to subside, and another wave had arisen. Just as they resolved Dan Qi's worries, the Great Wilderness Supremacy and the rest attacked. Luckily, the Great Wilderness Supremacy was only a clone. Otherwise, with the mental state of Ning Yu and the rest, they wouldn't have lasted more than 3 minutes. Swoosh! When everything calmed down, a figure dashed in from outside the courtyard and landed beside Ning Yu and the rest. Mu Feng. Actually, Mu Feng had witnessed the entire battle between Ning Yu and the rest. Mu Feng's cultivation was too low. He hadn't even reached the honorable realm and didn't dare to get involved. Dean Mu, prepare a quiet room for us immediately. Ning Yu didn't beat around the bush and said directly, also, bring over all the crystals and elixirs that you can gather at your current stage. After the battle, Ning Yu and the rest had expended a lot of energy and urgently needed to replenish their energy. Venerable De Huang, who had just self-destructed, was only an avatar. Once the Great Wilderness Supremacy's real body rushed over, the consequences would be dire. After all, the Great Wilderness Supremacy, was a grade 9 human supreme. With the current state of Ningyu and the rest, not to mention a 9th grade human sovereign, even a pinnacle 8th grade human sovereign would most likely die. Recuperate as much as possible. There was only one thought in Ningyu's mind, and that was to recover to his peak state as soon as possible. Although Danwu College has crystals and elixirs, they might not have much effect on warriors of your level. After a moment of silence, Mu Feng said, "The royal family's Oyingluan is outside. Why not?" Mu Feng didn't finish a sentence, but his meaning was self-evident. Oyingluan was the ruler of the royal family, and the royal family's foundation was similar to that of Danwu College. According to Mu Feng's guess, the royal family might have a treasure like the Xingyang pill. Dean Mu, you stay in Danwu College to deal with the aftermath. We will go to the Imperial Palace with Oyanglin. With that, Ning Yu grabbed Xialan and flew out of the courtyard. Just as Mu Feng had said, Oyangluan was outside. Ning Yu had just left the courtyard when he saw Oyanglin. To the royal family, Ning Yu did not speak any nonsense. He directly flitted past Oyangluan and disappeared in an instant. Whoosh! Seeing that Ning Yu had disappeared, Oyangluan did not dare to delay and hurriedly followed behind him. Let's go too. After such a long period of recuperation, Talisman Martial Supremacy had long recovered to peak condition. The more he interacted with Ningyu, the more he felt that Ningyu was terrifying. Since Ningyu had left Danwu College, there was no point for her to stay. Talisman Martial Supremacy and Yunmu looked at each other and could see the shock in each other's eyes. Stepping on the ground, Talisman Martial Supremacy, and Yunmu's figures flashed and followed closely beside Oyanglin. Since Talisman Martial Supremacy and the rest had left, Dong he naturally would not stay behind. He followed closely and disappeared. Sha! Ning Yu did not care if Talisman Martial Supremacy followed or not. He was already familiar with the Imperial Palace. Very soon he arrived at the Imperial Palace from Danwu College and arrived at Oyangluan's room. Swish, swish, swish! Before long, Oyangluan, Talisman Martial Supremacy and Dong he appeared one after another. Oyangluan, bring all the supreme grade essence crystals and above and elixir pills of grade 8 and above. Ning Yu first placed Xialan on the chair and said in a deep voice, "Also, are there any treasures in the Imperial Palace? I mean, treasures similar to the Xingyang pill." Treasures? Oyangluan frowned slightly and went into deep thought. After a while, Oyangluan said hesitantly, "There are many treasures in the Imperial Palace. They're all in the treasury. However, I don't know which one is useful to you. Bring me there." Ning Yu stood up and said, "Hold on." Seeing that Oyangluan was about to leave, Ning Yu said, "Find a reliable person to bring all the essence crystals and elixir pills over. I'll go to the treasury with you." "Hold on." Oyangluan took out a crystal ball from his bosom, whispered a few words, and immediately crushed it. Crack! The crystal ball shattered, and Oyangluan said, "The location of the treasury is confidential. I'll bring you there." As he spoke, Oyangluan moved his feet and left the room before Ning Yu did. "If there's anything, contact me as soon as possible." Ning Yu nodded at the Sword of Evil and walked out of the room without looking back. In the room, the Sword of Evil and the rest looked at each other and could see the helplessness in each other's eyes. To be honest, it was extremely difficult to rely on supreme grade essence crystals or even grade 8 elixir pills to recover at the level of the Sword of Evil and Talisman Martial Supremacy. Unless they had royal grade essence crystals or grade 9 elixir pills, it would be harder for them to recover to their peak. Of course, if they had a large number of Shenyang pills, they would probably only need 3 minutes at most to recover to their peak. Did the Imperial Palace have Shenyang pills? The answer was obviously no. Oyangluan led Ning Yu through many turns and walked for a full 10 minutes before he stopped in front of a slightly dark stone door. Oyangluan forced a drop of blood essence into the groove on the stone door. He pressed his hands against the door and exerted a little force. Creak! The thick and heavy stone door was pushed open slowly. Be careful. After giving Ningyu a warning glance, Ouyang Luan took the lead and walked in. Ningyu did not hesitate and followed Ouyang Luan closely. The moment his feet crossed the threshold, Ningyu frowned and stopped on the spot. What's wrong? Ouyang Luan had to stop as well when he saw Ningyu stop. How many levels does the treasury have? Ningyu asked. Of course, it's the first level. Why do you ask? Ouyang Luan was puzzled. He had been in the imperial palace for so many years, and he had been to the treasury hundreds of times. From what he knew, there was only one level. Could it be that there was a second or third floor in the treasury? That's right. The treasury does have a second, third, and even a fourth level. As though he had seen through Ouyang Luan's thoughts, Ningyu strode into the treasury. Using his perception, Ningyu started to probe carefully. Ouyang Luan did not even dare to breathe loudly when he saw Ningyu probing. He was extremely careful. Although Ouyang Luan looked calm on the surface, he was actually very disdainful. In Ouyang Luan's opinion, no matter how high Ningyu's cultivation was, he wouldn't be able to see anything. Ever since the establishment of the Great Xia Kingdom, this treasury had existed. After generations of exploration by the ancestors of the imperial palace, they came to a conclusion that there was only one level. I don't believe that you can. Ouyang Luan murmured in disdain. Crack! However, just as Ouyang Luan's disdain rose, his mouth opened wide and his voice stopped. This was because, with a cracking sound, the space in the center of the treasure vault had completely cracked open. Chapter 1171. Hellhound Gulp. The sudden change caused Ouyang Luan to be dumbfounded on the spot. He could not help but swallow a mouthful of saliva. Shock, fear, astonishment, all sorts of emotions appeared on Ouyang Luan's face, making him look extremely comical. Slap in the face. A blatant slap in the face. As the ruler of the royal family, Ouyang Luan felt ashamed that he did not know that there was a second level to the treasury. What are you standing there for? Come in. Seeing Ouyang Luan in a daze, Ningyu reminded him. Yes. Ouyang Luan immediately reacted. His body trembled, and he hurriedly entered the vortex with Ningyu. Puchi! As soon as Ningyu and the rest entered the vortex, Ouyang Luan felt a sweetness in his throat and spat out a mouthful of blood. Pressure. A powerful pressure. Ouyang Luan was only in the manifestation realm. Facing this pressure that could kill a supremacy realm martial artist, there was nothing he could do. Fortunately, Ningyu used his Yuan Qi to help Ouyang Luan resist the pressure. Otherwise, Ouyang Luan would not have been able to enter the second level of the treasury. Rumble. When his feet left the vortex and stepped into the second level of the treasury, Ouyang Luan looked at the scene in front of him in a daze. The second level of the treasury was extremely special. Rather than calling it the second level, it was more like a small and narrow room. As the saying goes, a sparrow may be small, but it had all the organs. This room was not big, but the things inside made Ouyang Luan dizzy. There was a stone table in the middle of the room. On the table, there were 4 to 5 storage bags. Next to each storage bag was a piece of Emperor-grade origin crystal. It's actually Emperor-grade origin crystal. Ouyang Luan was not the only one who was shocked. Even Ningyu himself was shocked. Ever since his rebirth, he had only seen 20 Emperor-grade origin crystals at the Talisman Supremacy's place. Now there were 5 storage bags here. If he guessed correctly, there was a large number of Emperor-grade origin crystals in each storage bag. Come here. Raising his right hand, a suction force flew out from Ningyu's sleeve and sucked a storage bag over. Pa! Firmly grasping the storage bag, Ningyu split off a wisp of perception and began to probe. Hiss! Ning Yu sucked in a breath of cold air as soon as he probed the surroundings. It wasn't that there weren't any Emperor-grade essence crystals in the storage pouch, but the amount of Emperor-grade essence crystals in the storage pouch had exceeded his expectations. 1,000. There were a total of 1,000 Emperor-grade essence crystals in the first storage bag. Emperor-grade essence crystals were much more precious than sovereign-grade essence crystals. So many Emperor-grade essence crystals were enough to let Ning Yu recover to his peak state. In fact, the extra Emperor-grade origin crystals could even allow Ning Yu to reach the pinnacle 3rd grade mortal sovereign realm. To be precise, Ning Yu's cultivation was only at the early 3rd grade human sovereign stage. As long as he could advance to the peak 3rd grade human sovereign stage, he wouldn't have to fear ordinary 8th grade human sovereigns in the future. He wouldn't have to fight like he did with Zhou Se and the others. Whoosh, 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 whoosh. Due to the urgency of the situation, Ning Yu didn't have the time to stay here any longer. He quickly collected the remaining 4 storage pouches and threw them into his storage ring. 5 storage pouches and 5,000 Emperor-grade essence crystals. Ouyang Luan's eyes lit up with envy when he saw this harvest. Ouyang Luan regretted guarding the treasury, but didn't know how to use it. If he had discovered so many Emperor-grade essence crystals earlier, the imperial family's power would have increased by several folds. However, there was no medicine for regret in this world. Ouyang Luan could only stare straight at Ning Yu to see what Ning Yu was going to do next. Step aside. Waving his hand, Ning Yu gestured for Ouyang Luan to take a few steps back. Ouyang Luan didn't dare to disobey Ning Yu's order. He quickly retreated to the edge of the room and summoned his essence to form a barrier in front of him. Break! Ning Yu's eyes turned cold. He clenched his fists and suddenly punched out. Crack, crack! The entire space crackled under Ning Yu's bombardment and shook rapidly. Pucci! The shaking of the void caused Ouyang Luan to spit out a mouthful of blood, and his face became slightly pale. Ouyang Luan's expression turned ugly. He initially thought he was safe. Who would have thought that there was no safety behind Ning Yu? Ouyang Luan even suspected that he would die if he followed Ning Yu to the 3rd floor. Roar! Just as Ouyang Luan was lost in his thoughts, a deafening roar echoed in the small room. No wonder you've been hiding in there. It's just essence gas. The corner of Ning Yu's lips curled up as he said calmly, What I need are the Shenyang pills. Your time is up. Go back to where you came from. Human, you're smart to be able to tell that I'm just essence gas and that my time is up. Buzz, buzz. The void trembled, and a dog-shaped creature appeared out of thin air. Hound of Hell? Looking at the strange creature before him, Ning Yu frowned. You're the Hound of Hell. From this, it seems like this space was created by an expert from the Hound of Hell race. To think that you know about the Hound of Hell. The 2-eared hound stared at Ning Yu with interest. I sense a familiar aura from you. You must have come into contact with the Heaven Devourer Hound. The Hound of Hell was the same as the Heaven Devourer Hound. They were both dogs. One of them could devour the heavens and the earth, while the other was like a messenger from hell. Both were extremely terrifying. I have indeed come into contact with the Heaven Devourer Hound. Ning Yu said calmly, This essence gas of yours can't last long. Let's not waste everyone's time and enter the 3rd floor. Although I would like to let you guys enter the 3rd floor, the rules are set. As long as I live for another minute, you guys have to follow the rules. The 2-eared hound said calmly. Sorry. Ning Yu didn't want to waste his breath with the Hound of Hell and immediately charged out. There were 5,000 Emperor-grade origin crystals on the 2nd floor and no one stopped him. However, the 3rd floor was guarded by the Hound of Hell. Judging from this, the 3rd floor must have something even more terrifying than the Emperor-grade origin crystals. There's nothing wrong with offending me. The rules are set. If you want to enter the 3rd floor, you have to defeat me." The two-eared hound looked at the approaching Ningyu and narrowed its eyes. "Unfortunately, it's very difficult for you to defeat me with your grade 3 human supreme cultivation. If you could cultivate for a few more years, you might—" Bang! Before the Hound of Hell could finish its sentence, its body was sent flying and slammed heavily into the wall. "I'm going to die." Ouyang Luin's eyes widened when he saw the Hound of Hell's miserable state and cursed. After all this time, this Hound of Hell was actually so weak. How surprising. Chapter 1172. Dan Xia Ziyuan. The Hound of Hell was a person who was willing to admit defeat. No, it should be a dog who is willing to admit defeat. Furthermore, the Hound of Hell even reminded Lin Fan before disappearing. "Since you're in such a hurry to head to the 3rd level, it seems like a friend is in trouble and needs a large amount of elixirs or herbs to replenish vitality. However, you have to remember that the 3rd level is very complicated. Remember not to act impulsively." Wong Wong. As soon as it finished speaking, the Hound of Hell's body gradually turned illusory. Eventually, it turned into an afterimage and blended into the void. "Ningyu, are we really going to the 3rd level?" Ouyang Luin asked hesitantly when he saw the Hound of Hell disappear. Although Ningyu had defeated the Hound of Hell easily, Ouyang Luin wasn't deaf. He heard the Hound of Hell's words clearly. Even someone as strong as the Hound of Hell was a little worried, let alone them. "Why are you talking so much nonsense? You stay here. I'll head to the 3rd level myself." Even without Ouyang Luin's reminder, Ningyu had no intention of bringing Ouyang Luin to the 3rd level. Even with Ouyang Luin's cultivation base, he probably wouldn't be able to withstand the pressure of the 3rd level. "All right, I'll stay. If there's any commotion outside, I'll inform you immediately." Ouyang Luin was waiting for this sentence. When Ningyu told him to stay, he hurriedly replied, "Kacha!" Ning, you couldn't be bothered with Ouyang Luin. He immediately tore open the void and dived in. The pressure on the 3rd level was much stronger than the 2nd level. Even though Ningyu was prepared, he nearly fell for it. Swish! Swish! As soon as Ningyu entered the 3rd level, he felt 2 beams of cold light coming at him from 2 directions. Chi! Chi! The 2 beams of cold light were extremely fast. As they rubbed against the air, they let out sizzling sounds. Not good. At the critical moment, Ningyu's eyes turned cold and he immediately dodged to the side. Boom! As Ningyu's speed was extremely fast, the 2 beams of cold light collided. The cold lights collided, and even space itself became extremely unstable, trembling. In the first place, the 3rd floor of the treasury was a newly opened space. It was inevitable that it would be unstable. Who dares to trespass here? As soon as Ningyu steadied himself, he heard a loud shout. Hearing the reprimand, Ningyu immediately turned around. In front of Ningyu, there was a middle-aged man dressed in light blue robes, who exuded an imposing aura without being angry. Late 8th grade, human sovereign. Sensing the aura emanating from the middle-aged man, Ningyu slightly knitted his brows. With your late phase 8th grade sovereign cultivation, this space shouldn't have been opened by you. Of course it wasn't him. As soon as Ningyu's voice rang out, an old man appeared beside him. The old man's cultivation was clearly much higher than the middle-aged man's, reaching the 9th grade human sovereign realm. However, the old man looked rather weak. He must have suffered serious injuries. Old fart, I advise you to hand over the Shenyang pills. Otherwise, I'll cripple you. Seeing the old man, the middle-aged man fiercely said, If it wasn't for your protection, the demon lord would have been killed by us long ago. Why would we wait till now? But that's fine too. As he spoke, the middle-aged man changed the topic and continued. Before the demon lord died, he passed all his Shenyang pills to you. Since I've found you, it means that I've found a large amount of Shenyang pills. You're dreaming if you want to get the Shenyang pills from me, the old man coldly said. Ha ha ha. The middle-aged man raised his head and laughed. Old fart, don't tell me that you've placed all your hopes on this trash? A third-grade, human sovereign trash. I can kill him with a wave of my hand. Pardon my intrusion, but I heard you guys mentioning the Demon Lord. Can you tell me what's the relationship between you guys and the Demon Lord? Ning Yu slightly furrowed his brows. Humph, there's no harm in telling you. I'm called Dan Xiezi, a member of the Pill Success Continent's Alchemy Union. As for this old fellow, he's called Dan Guzi, also a member of the Alchemy Union. However, Dan Xiezi paused for a moment before continuing. Dan Guzi is a traitor of the Alchemy Union. He was the one who let the Devil Venerable escape, and before the Devil Venerable died, he took all of the Devil Venerable's Shenyang pills into this sealed space. If I hadn't left an imprint on Dan Guzi's body, I'm afraid that I would never have been able to find him. I understand. Ning Yu nodded. You have a grudge with the Demon Lord, while Dan Guzi is on good terms with him. So what if you understand? Do you think you can help Dan Guzi? Dan Xiezi curled his lips in disdain. Dan Xiezi, I'll help you deal with Dan Xiezi. Give me 100 Shenyang pills. Ignoring Dan Xiezi's mockery, Ning Yu turned to Dan Guzi. Fwish! Ning Yu's demand wasn't just shocking to Dan Xiezi. Even the person in question, Dan Guzi, was shocked. 100 Shenyang pills? How could Ning Yu say such a thing? Although the Demon Lord was an earth supremacy when he was alive, he did have a few hundred Shenyang pills. But the Demon Lord and Dan Guzi had used up a few hundred Shenyang pills on the way. Right now, Dan Guzi only had 80 Shenyang pills left. I only have a total of 80 Shenyang pills on me. I can't give them all to you. Dan Guzi's expression was dark. How about this? I'll leave 10 Shenyang pills for you, but you have to give the remaining 70 to me. Ning Yu's voice was low. Seeing that Dan Guzi was about to refuse, Ning Yu continued, Don't be in such a hurry to refuse. Although I'm asking for 70 Shenyang pills, I can promise you that I will help you recover to your peak as soon as possible. You're certain that you can heal my injuries? Dan Guzi's mouth was agape, a look of disbelief on his face. While escaping from the Alchemy Union's experts, Dan Guzi had been poisoned. Snake-scorpion poison. Snake-scorpion poison was an extremely terrifying poison. In truth, when he had first been poisoned, Dan Guzi had a total of 160 Shenyang pills on him. After all these years, Dan Guzi had used up a total of 80 Shenyang pills to preserve his life. Otherwise, he would have long since died from the poison. I don't dare to say that I have a 100% chance of curing snake-scorpion poison, but I have at least an 80% chance. Ning Yu didn't make his words sound so certain. After all, even horses stumble. He couldn't be too certain. All right, I agree. 70 Shenyang pills. Dan Guzi had a premonition that this was an opportunity. He had been trapped in this space for many years. He had originally thought that he would be slowly tortured to death by Dan Guzi. Who would have thought that there would be a glimmer of hope at the darkest hour? Ning Yu's appearance had given him hope. Are you daydreaming? Chapter 1173. A clay bodhisattva crossing the river. In Dan Xiezi's view, whether it was Ning Yu or Dan Guzi, they weren't his match. Dan Guzi might be a little troublesome, but he could kill Ning Yu in one move. Where did Ning Yu get the courage to be conceited enough to think that he could kill him? Noisy. Since he had come to an agreement with Dan Guzi, Ning Yu would naturally help him get rid of Dan Xiezi. With a cold snort, Ning Yu's figure flashed, and he immediately flew out. While fighting against Dan Xiezi, Ning Yu looked down on him on the surface, but he was secretly very careful. After all, Dan Xiezi was a late-stage, rank 8 human sovereign, and his strength was not weak. Courting death! As Dan Xiazi watched Ningyu approach him, a vicious look appeared on his face. With a low roar, Dan Xiazi clenched his fists and suddenly punched out. Swoosh! Swoosh! 2 rays of light shot out from Dan Xiazi's fists and flew towards Ningyu. It's a soul attack fist technique. Feeling the soul power ripple from the light, Ningyu's heart trembled slightly and he quickly retreated. Ningyu could clearly feel that this punch from Dan Xiazi was extremely powerful. It was a soul attack fist technique. Universe Palm. As he retreated, Ningyu gathered his middle stage rank 7 soul power on his wrists and waved his palms. Voila! Several palm prints appeared on Ningyu's palms and clashed with Dan Xiazi's palm prints. If the power was not enough, quantity would make up for it. Dan Xiazi had only sent out 2 palm prints, while Ningyu had sent out dozens of palm prints. I can't believe it. Dan Xiazi couldn't help but curse when he saw the sky full of blood-red palm prints. Kacha! Several palm prints clashed, letting out a crisp sound. Although Dan Xiazi had only sent out 2 palm prints, he was not at a disadvantage against Ningyu's dozens of palm prints. The 2 palm prints and the dozens of palm prints all disappeared. Dan Xiazi's face was extremely dark and ugly. He had endured in this sealed space for so long, all for the sake of killing Dan Guzi and stealing his Shenyang pills. After so many years, he had basically been fighting with Dan Guzi and neglected to train his martial techniques. Otherwise, with his late-stage, rank 8 soul power, he would be able to heavily injure Ningyu. Dan Xiazi, it of a late-stage, rank 8 human sovereign, doesn't live up to your name. After that move, Ningyu took a few steps back and crossed his arms before his chest. Even an initial phase, 3rd grade sovereign like me can't defeat you. Could it be that you've been cultivating for so many years? TSK. The world of cultivation doesn't suit you. Let me give you a piece of advice. Go home and raise pigs. Being ridiculed by Ningyu, Dan Xiazi roared like a madman. Brat, do you think this is all I can do? Today, I'll let you see what true strength is. Dan Xiazi took out a pill from his robes and threw it into his mouth. Kacha! As he chewed the pill, Dan Xiazi's aura began to rise rapidly. Peak late-stage 8th grade human supreme martial artist. Peak 8th grade human supreme martial artist. With every passing second, Dan Xiazi's aura grew stronger and stronger. 10 seconds later, Dan Xiazi's soaring aura finally stopped. 9th grade initial human supreme martial artist. At this moment, Dan Xiazi's aura had soared from late 8th grade human sovereign to early 9th grade human sovereign. Furthermore, a terrifying pressure was being emitted from Dan Xiazi's body. It was clearly something that could only be emitted by a genuine initial phase 9th grade sovereign. Brat, I've already advanced to 9th grade human sovereign. How are you going to fight me? Raising his eyebrows, Dan Xiazi said arrogantly. Uft. You couldn't help but laugh. Who doesn't know how to brag? The breath-strengthening pill is a 9th grade spiritual pill that can allow a martial artist's aura to reach 9th grade human supreme martial artist level for a short period of time. It might be able to scare others, but it's not enough to scare me. I forgot to tell you, I've made pills like the breath-strengthening pill before. Ha ha ha. Dan Xiazi was slightly startled at first. Then he laughed maniacally. You're only a 7th grade intermediate alchemist. And you dare say that you've made the breath-strengthening pill before? What a joke. We'll know whether I'm a 9th grade human supreme martial artist or not after a fight. Ning, you didn't want to waste time with Dan Xiazi. He immediately took out the red demon sword and slashed out several sword rays. Dozens of sword radiants shot out and surrounded Dan Xiazi in the middle. Child's play. Surrounded by so many sword radiances, the worry in Dan Xiazi's eyes flashed for a moment before quickly disappearing. Ning Yu's guess was right. Dan Xiazi had indeed consumed the breath-strengthening pill, a pill that could increase one's aura for a short period of time. Dan Xiazi originally thought that as long as he consumed the breath-strengthening pill, he would be able to fool Ningyu. However, no matter how much he calculated, he failed to calculate that Ningyu was a heavenly sovereign in his previous life, a pinnacle 9th grade alchemist who had personally refined the breath-increasing pellet. Thus, Ningyu was extremely sensitive to the aura of the pellet. Dan Xiazi had to change his strategy. He wanted to use his soul energy to completely suppress Ningyu. Whoosh! With a thought, Dan Xiazi's soul energy rushed out of his body and arrived before Ningyu. Under Ningyu's frightened gaze, his soul energy entered Ningyu's consciousness. Let's see what you can do. The moment his soul energy entered Ningyu's consciousness, Dan Xiazi said coldly, "Your soul energy is only at 7th grade intermediate stage, but I am at 8th grade advanced stage. You're still not strong enough to fight me. Is that so?" However, just as Dan Xiazi's cold words left his mouth, the corner of Ningyu's mouth curled upwards, and he spoke in an indifferent tone. "In my sea of consciousness, even a 9th grade soul force would not be able to contend against me. Have you lost your mind?" Dan Xiazi asked in shock. A 7th grade intermediate stage soul force dared to fight against 8th grade advanced stage soul force? Describing Ningyu as a lunatic would not be an exaggeration. When he was at the Alchemist Union, Dan Xiazi had seen many geniuses. The strength of those geniuses' soul energy was not any weaker than Ningyu's. Even those alchemy Dao geniuses couldn't compete with him by relying on soul force alone, let alone Ningyu. Therefore, in Dan Xiazi's eyes, Ningyu was already a dead man. He was only half a step away from death. As long as he circulated his soul energy, Ningyu would die without a doubt. Remember this in your next life. When you meet someone with a soul energy much stronger than yours, you must seal your own consciousness. Do not let their soul energy enter your consciousness. Dan Xiazi said coldly, as if he had everything planned out already. Dan Xiazi, have you forgotten about me? Seeing Dan Xiazi's cold expression, Dan Guzi scolded, "My soul energy is at the peak of 8th grade advanced stage soul force. If I join hands with Ningyu, we can easily devour your soul energy." You. Chapter 1174. Despair. Dan Xiazi, do you think I'm a 3-year-old? If you had a way to kill me, you would have done it long ago. Why would you wait until now? Haha, since you want to die, I'll help you out. Smiling slightly, Dan Xiazi charged at Dan Guzi. Right now, Dan Xiazi was fighting on both sides. On one side, he was using his spiritual strength to deal with Ningyu, while on the other, he was using his martial power to deal with Dan Guzi. Bang! Dan Guzi had been poisoned by the serpent scorpion venom, and his power was less than 1/10 of his peak. Pill Guzi was sent flying dozens of meters away by Dan Xiazi's fist. Uft! Vomiting a mouthful of blood, Dan Guzi's face turned pale. What? Why didn't you dodge? To tell the truth, Dan Xiazi was very puzzled that he had been able to hit Dan Guzi so easily. In the decades they had been in this space, Dan Xiazi and Dan Guzi had exchanged over 1,000 blows. Each time, Dan Guzi had been at a complete disadvantage. But although he was at a disadvantage, Dan Xiazi had no way of killing Dan Guzi. In fact, he couldn't even touch Dan Guzi's body. That was because Dan Guzi was even more familiar with this space than he was. Dan Guzi was also very adept at controlling space. Dan Xiazi was very puzzled. Why hadn't Dan Guzi dodged this time? Why should I dodge? Dan Guzi shrugged. All your spiritual strength is focused on controlling Ningyu. What danger could I possibly be in? Ha ha ha. Dan Xie laughed maniacally after being asked a few questions by Dan Guzi. Your head has finally opened. Now I let you know what it means to... Sometimes, the more arrogant you were, the more cruel you were. Dan Xie's maniacal laughter was interrupted by the sound of blood spurting out of his mouth. Impossible. Dan Xie hastily looked at Ningyu. His mouth was wide open, his face filled with disbelief. His late rank 8 spiritual strength had lost its connection to him. In other words, Ningyu had cut off the connection between him and his soul power, causing him to completely lose his soul power. Nothing is impossible. Taking a deep breath, Ningyu said in a deep voice, You're stupid enough to fight on your own side and ignore me. Although your soul force is slightly stronger than mine, I am the master of my sea of consciousness. Puchi. Dan Xie spat out another mouthful of blood. The cold expression on his face became even more obvious. Careless. How careless! If he had known this would happen, Dan Xie would definitely have focused on dealing with Ningyu. Once he was done with Ningyu, he would go deal with Dan Guzi. Now, Dan Xie finally understood why Dan Guzi had chosen to fight him head-on instead of dodging. Everything was for Ningyu. Everything was to buy time for Ningyu. Dan Guzi, remember your promise. Glancing at Dan Guzi, Ningyu's body became illusory, and in the blink of an eye, he appeared in front of Dan Guzi. Hit the snake where it hurts. Don't hold back. This was Ningyu's code of conduct. Ningyu was no saint. Since he had decided to be enemies with Dan Xie, he would definitely use all his strength. Clenching his right hand into a fist, he sent a violent Yuan Qi gale towards Dan Xie. You want to kill me? Not so easy. Dan Xie's face revealed a vicious expression as he went berserk. In his berserk state, Dan Xie's strength had clearly increased. But without his soul force, Dan Xie was no match for Ningyu. Bang, bang, bang. On top of that, Ningyu's punches were extremely fast. Every single punch landed on Dan Xie's chest, causing him to continuously retreat. After being hit by Ningyu's punches, Dan Xie's aura rapidly declined. In a short period of time, he had already fallen from a late-stage 8th grade human supreme to an early-stage 8th grade human supreme. Furthermore, Dan Xie's aura continued to decline. No. I'm willing to surrender. Seeing that his aura was about to fall to a 7th grade human supreme, Dan Xie hurriedly said, Shua. Ningyu instantly stopped and stared at Dan Xie with interest. Surrendering is fine. Open your mind and let my soul force enter your sea of consciousness. Fine. Dan Xie's face darkened as he gritted his teeth. For the sake of survival, Dan Xie was willing to do anything, including surrendering. Ningyu, be careful. It might be a trap. Seeing that Ningyu wanted to subdue Dan Xie, Dan Guzi hurriedly reminded him. As far as I know, when Dan Xie was on the brink of death, he used this method to successfully escape and even killed a peak 8th grade human supreme. It's fine. Dan Xie can't cause too much trouble. Waving his hand, Ningyu signaled Dan Guzi not to worry. Ningyu was still very confident in dealing with Dan Xie, who had lost his soul force. Whoosh! With a thought, Ningyu separated a special wisp of soul force and sent it straight into Dan Xie's sea of consciousness. Good chance. The moment Ningyu's soul force entered Dan Xie's sea of consciousness, Dan Xie's eyes lit up and he immediately sealed Ningyu's soul force. Brat, I've mastered an extremely vicious spell. As long as I seal a wisp of your soul force, I can heavily injure you. Dan Xie said sinisterly. Let me give you a piece of advice. Hurry up and surrender. Otherwise, I will activate the spell and you will die without a grave. I'll give you a chance. Ningyu crossed his arms in front of his chest and said indifferently, "Fine." Dan Xiazi did not hesitate and immediately activated the spell to control Ning Yu's soul force. However, just as Dan Xiazi activated the spell, he let out a loud cry and spat out a mouthful of blood. What's going on? This sudden turn of events caused Dan Xiazi's mouth to gape in shock. Why was it that when he used Ning Yu's soul force to cast a spell, he ended up being the one injured? I got it. At that moment, Dan Xiazi thought of a possibility. Yu, the soul force you sent into my sea of consciousness is mine. You just blocked it off. Dan Xiazi almost went crazy. The soul force in his sea of consciousness did not belong to Ningyu. It belonged to him. Now, this was awkward. He originally wanted to use a secret spell to severely injure Ningyu. Who would have thought that he would be the one to be hit? Dan Xiazi, if I were you, I would find a piece of tofu and kill myself. Curling his lips, Ningyu raised his brows and said, "If I'm not wrong, you still have an ancient scroll on you. Once you activate that ancient scroll, I won't be able to fight back at all." What a pity. Because you didn't want your cultivation to regress. You ended up disappearing into thin air. The reason why Ningyu did not kill Dan Xiazi right away was because he was afraid that Dan Xiazi would use up his life force to activate the ancient scroll. Now that Dan Xiazi had been hit and was lying on the ground like a dead dog, Ningyu had nothing to worry about. Moving his feet, Ningyu arrived in front of Dan Xiazi and reached out to search Dan Xiazi's body. Chapter 1175. Chapter 1175. Healing after a while, Ningyu retracted his palm. There was a black scroll in his hand. Hiss! The scroll wasn't particularly big, but the terrifying essence chi fluctuations emitted from it still made Ningyu gasp in shock. Looking at the scroll in his hand, Ningyu's face turned solemn. Not only did the scroll emit a terrifying yuan chi fluctuation, but it also had a terrifying suction force. You could clearly feel that the only way to activate the scroll was to consume his life force. In other words, to activate the scroll, one's life force was the price. With Ningyu's current life force, if he activated the scroll, he would be able to fight against a 9th-grade human supreme. Dan Xiazi, you are really my lucky star. Keeping the scroll, Ningyu said to Dan Xiazi, "If you have any last words, say them. I will try my best to fulfill them." Die. Dan Xiazi was so angry that his lungs were about to explode. If he had known this would happen, he would have used the ancient scroll earlier. Even if he had to consume his life force, he would not have hesitated. At least he would have been able to survive, unlike now, where everything was gone and Ningyu had the upper hand. When a person was angry, they would always be able to explode with terrifying power. Dan Xiazi was no exception. He used all the strength in his body to throw out a punch, bringing with it a violent yuan chi gale towards Ningyu's head. As the saying goes, a starving camel is still bigger than a horse. Even though Dan Xiazi was severely injured, his punch was still very powerful. Ningyu did not dare to be slow. He quickly wrapped his yuan chi around his wrist and threw a punch. Chi. Relatively speaking, Ningyu's attack was much stronger than Dan Xiazi's. The air let out a hissing sound as Ningyu's fist collided with Dan Xiazi's right hand. Crack! A crisp sound, accompanied by a miserable shriek that sounded like a pig being slaughtered, resounded in the area. Thump! After a miserable scream, Dan Xiazi's body fell heavily to the ground. At this moment, Dan Xiazi from the Pill Completion, Mainland's Alchemy Union, was killed by Ningyu. Dan Guzi, 70 Xinjiang pills. After killing Dan Xiazi, Ningyu extended his right hand towards Dan Guzi. Hand it over. Pill Guzi's expression was extremely gloomy. No one knew what he was thinking. He had a total of 80 Xinjiang pills on him. If he were to give 70 to Ningyu, he would only be left with 10. 10 Shenyang pills might seem like a lot, but he was poisoned by the snake-scorpion venom and required Shenyang pills to sustain his life at all times. If he were to give all of his Shenyang pills to Ningyu, the consequences would be dire. Ningyu, you need to expel the snake-scorpion venom from my body first. Pil Guzi clenched his teeth. Pil Guzi knew that this request would definitely displease Ningyu. After all, he had already made an agreement with Ningyu. Ningyu would help him deal with Dan Xiazi, and he would give Ningyu 70 Shenyang pills. Now that he was the one who went back on his word, he naturally felt ashamed. Swish! As expected, Ningyu's face darkened upon hearing Pil Guzi's words. If I can kill Dan Xiazi, then I can kill you. Ningyu's words came out of his mouth. I'll give you one last chance. Take out 70 Shenyang pills. Otherwise, I can't guarantee what will happen. You must first expel the snake-scorpion venom from my body. Pil Guzi's stance was very firm. For him, the last straw to clutch at was Ningyu. If Ningyu didn't help him, he would very likely die in this space. Pil Guzi knew his body's situation better than anyone else. Without anyone's help, he could only last 3 days at most. After 3 days, the snake-scorpion venom would seep into his heart. At that time, not even a god would be able to save him. Therefore, Ningyu was a life-saving straw, and he must grab it. AI, you're forcing me to make a move. Sighing lightly, Ningyu reached into his robes and took out the red devil sword. Seeing the red devil sword in Ningyu's hand, Pil Guzi's heart shook. He had a bad feeling. Ningyu taking out the red devil sword meant that Ningyu wanted to kill him. I can swear an oath to the heavenly Tao that as long as you do your best to expel the snake-scorpion venom from my body, whether you succeed or not, I will give you all the Shenyang pills. At this critical moment, Pil Guzi hurriedly said, Furthermore, I will promise to protect you unconditionally for a month. That seems very tempting. Ningyu frowned slightly. Since you're so sincere, I'll first help you expel the snake-scorpion venom from your body. I, Pil Guzi, swear an oath to the heavenly Tao. If Ningyu helps me expel... Pil Guzi forced out a drop of essence blood and swore the oath in front of Ningyu. Sit down and relax your mind. No matter what's going on in your body, don't move, said Ningyu after Dan Guzi swore an oath to the heavenly Taos. Swish! Since he'd already sworn the oath, Pil Guzi could only trust Ningyu. Without a second word, Pil Guzi sat down. Swish! As soon as Pil Guzi sat down, Ningyu sent a wisp of his spiritual strength into Pil Guzi's body. My God, my God! When his spiritual strength entered Pil Guzi's body and saw his organs, Ningyu couldn't help but curse. Terrifying, extremely terrifying. Of Pil Guzi's organs, only his heart was still intact. Everything else had begun to rot. Luckily, you ran into me. Otherwise, even a god wouldn't be able to save Pil Guzi after a while. Taking a deep breath, Ningyu carefully controlled his spiritual strength and circulated it through Pil Guzi's body. With every second that passed, a small drop of black liquid would flow out of Pil Guzi's skin. This black liquid was the venom of the snake-scorpion venom. I need to speed up. Narrowing his eyes, Ningyu once more sent a wisp of spiritual strength into Pil Guzi's body, focusing all his attention on expelling the snake-scorpion venom. Based on the previous speed, Ningyu would need at least a few hours to help Pil Guzi recover to his peak condition. But now he estimated that he would only need an hour or even less for Ningyu to completely expel the snake-scorpion venom from Pil Guzi's body. On this side, Ningyu was still working hard to help Pil Guzi expel the snake-scorpion venom. In the imperial palace, in Ouyang Luan's room, Xie Lan felt a sweetness in his throat as he spurted a mouthful of blood. Elder Xie, are you all right? Xie Lan's situation had caused the hearts of Venerable Talisman Marshal and Yunmu to tighten as they spoke out anxiously. I'm fine. Wiping the blood off the corner of his lips, Xiaolon fiercely said, "Those from the divine Heaven Gate are too despicable. They actually launched a sneak attack on me when I wasn't paying attention. Forget it. Zhou Sei and the rest are all 5th grade sovereigns, 3 absolute geniuses. Even if they fought you head-on, you wouldn't be able to win." In another corner of the room, the Dark Emperor rolled his eyes. "Let me remind you, the clones of the Great Desolation Venerable are all pinnacle 8th grade sovereigns. The moment his main body comes, we'll all be finished. Ha ha ha." When the Dark Emperor's voice landed, a burst of laughter resounded from the void. Buzz! Chapter 1176. The Great Desolation Venerable's Attack. Russell. Looking at the black-robed cultivator, the Dark Emperor's voice came to an abrupt halt. Aside from the Dark Emperor, even the Sword of Evil and Xiaolon had a drastic change in their expressions as their hearts sank to the bottom. 9th grade sovereign, the Sword of Evil, and the rest could clearly determine that the black-robed cultivator's cultivation was at the 9th grade sovereign realm. Ouyang Luan had sent many transcendent grade origin crystals, royal grade origin crystals, and even a few 8th grade elixirs. However, those items weren't enough for the Sword of Evil and Xiaolon to recover to their peak state. Furthermore, even if they recovered to their peak state, they wouldn't be a match for the black-robed cultivator. "Where's Ningyu? Why isn't he here?" the black-robed cultivator asked as he swept his gaze across the room. "Ningyu has already left the Great Xia Kingdom," the Dark Emperor said coldly. The black-robed cultivator was a 9th grade sovereign. For the sake of Ningyu's safety, the Dark Emperor decided to lie. After your clone exploded, Ningyu immediately left the Great Xia Kingdom. If I'm not wrong, he should be in the Lanqing Kingdom right now. Haha, I didn't expect you guys to know that I'm the Great Desolation Venerable. The Great Desolation Venerable said with a smile. "I don't believe a single word you guys said." After a brief pause, the Great Desolation Venerable continued. "The heavens are merciful. I'll give you guys 3 minutes. I want to see Ningyu and Lu Wei in 3 minutes. Otherwise, boom." The Great Desolation Venerable's eyes turned cold as a terrifying aura was unleashed from his body, pressing towards the Sword of Evil and the rest. Uft! Under the pressure of the Great Desolation Venerable's aura, the Sword of Evil vomited a mouthful of blood as his aura weakened. Buffed! Even the Sword of Evil vomited blood. One could imagine that Xiaolon, the Dark Emperor, and the rest wouldn't have a good ending. Fortunately, Honorable De Huang did not use his full strength. Otherwise, with the cultivation of the Dark Emperor, Dong He and the others, they would have died long ago. Sovereign Great Desolation found a chair and sat down as he shut his eyes to recuperate. Swoosh! On the surface, the Great Wilderness, Venerable, seemed to be resting with his eyes closed. In actual fact, the Great Wilderness Venerable had already released his soul power and perception to probe the Imperial Palace carefully. The main reason why Reverend Great Desolation didn't kill the Sword of Evil and the others was that he was afraid that Ningyu would leave the Xia Kingdom as long as he could control the Sword of Evil and the others. Even if Ningyu were to leave the Xia Kingdom, the Honorable Great Desolation would have a way to bring him back. What now? Xiaolon approached the Sword of Evil and whispered as the Reverend of Great Wilderness was probing the imperial family. Wait. Venerable Sword Evil was a man of few words. He only said one word. Wait. Xiaolon's face was filled with confusion. Logically speaking, he had to think of a way to escape or fight. He had to come up with a plan. The Honorable Great Desolation gave them 3 minutes, and 3 minutes would soon pass. If the Honorable Great Desolation started a massacre, wouldn't they be in serious trouble? We can only wait. It's impossible for us to escape. The Sword of Evil said in a deep voice, the reason why the Honorable Great Desolation didn't kill us right away means that we are still useful to him. What we have to do now is to wait. The Sword of Evil is right. The Honorable Great Desolation definitely wants to use us to learning you out. As long as we don't say anything, he won't dare to do anything to us. The Dark Emperor nodded. Bang! However, as soon as the Dark Emperor finished a sentence, his body flew out and slammed against the door. Crack! The wooden door was smashed into smithereens. The Dark Emperor wasn't in his peak condition to begin with. Now that he was ambushed by the Honorable Great Desolation, it made things worse. Tell me where Ningyu is, or I'll start with you. The Honorable Great Desolation retracted his senses and said coldly, Steamed dog meat is a good dish. The Honorable Great Desolation chose to attack because he couldn't find Ningyu in the royal family. His goal was to find Ningyu. How could he not be angry when he couldn't find him? I told you long ago that Ningyu went to the Launching Kingdom, but you didn't believe me. The Dark Emperor clenched his teeth and said with pride, Bang! 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 The Honorable Great Desolation would never hold back against a tough opponent like the Dark Emperor. He clenched his fists and threw a few punches, each landing on the Dark Emperor's body. The Honorable Great Desolation was a 9th grade human supreme, while the Dark Emperor was a 3rd grade intermediate human supreme. Although the Dark Emperor gathered all his vitality on the surface of his skin, he still couldn't defend against the Honorable Great Desolation's powerful attacks. The Dark Emperor suffered a total of 30 punches. Out of the 30 punches, only one was fatal, which it was the last punch. The Honorable Great Desolation swung his wrist and threw another punch with his right hand. Kacha! The fist came into contact with the Dark Emperor's chest and broke a few of his ribs. You! The Dark Emperor's mouth was agape as he looked at the Honorable Great Desolation in horror. He stretched out his right hand and said, You've actually reached the pinnacle of early stage 9th grade human supreme. You're only half a step away from advancing to the middle stage 9th grade human supreme. Thump! The Dark Emperor's head tilted and he fell to the ground, fainting. You're smart. I'm indeed a pinnacle of early stage 9th grade human supreme. Curling his lips, the Honorable Great Desolation laughed. I wanted to kill you, but your identity as a purple gold sky devouring hound saved your life. Otherwise, you would have been long dead. What are you trying to do? The Dark Emperor said coldly, I've already said that steamed dog meat is a good dish. I'm going to steam you alive. The Honorable Great Desolation waved his sleeves, and a giant elixir furnace flew out, expanding in the room. Rustle. A minute later, when the elixir furnace had expanded by several folds, the Honorable Great Desolation grabbed the Dark Emperor and threw him into the elixir furnace. Shit! Seeing the Honorable Great Desolation's actions, the Sword of Evil let out a deep roar and swiftly charged out, using all his strength to attack the Honorable Great Desolation. The Dark Emperor had fought alongside him. Even if he couldn't confront the Honorable Great Desolation, the Sword of Evil had to think of a way to save the Dark Emperor. He wasn't willing to pay any price. 100 flowers bloom. Seeing the Sword of Evil making a move, Xielan also grabbed at the void. Along with the movement of Xielan's hands, several petals descended from the sky and surrounded the Honorable Great Desolation. I never thought that you're from the 100 Flowers Palace. Sensing the petals that covered the sky, the Honorable Great Desolation was briefly stunned before he continued. If your palace master came personally, I might be fearful. But if a middle-stage 8th grade sovereign like you makes a move, I can kill you with a wave of my hand. The Honorable Great Desolation waved his sleeves as the word kill resounded. Whoosh! 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 Several cold lights flew out from the Honorable Great Desolation's sleeves and came into contact with the petals in the sky. Rustle! The hundreds of petals couldn't put up any resistance against the dozens of cold lights and were instantly defeated. Chapter 1177. Poof, 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 poof. Although those cold beams were obstructed by a few hundred petals, they still managed to obtain a complete victory against Venerable Talisman and the rest. Venerable Talisman, Yunmu, and Dong-He. The three of them were struck by the cold beams as they spurted blood from their mouths. They only lasted for a few minutes before they fainted like the Dark Emperor. Only a few minutes had passed since Venerable Great Desolation appeared. In just a few minutes, the Dark Emperor and Venerable Talisman had suffered heavy injuries, and their fates were unknown. As for the Sword of Evil and Xiaolan, their conditions weren't perfect, and they were only a step away from death. I'll give you guys one last chance. Tell me where Ningyu is, or I'll make you guys suffer. Venerable Great Desolation's eyes emitted an eerie chill as he eerily said, I'll count to 3. If you guys don't tell me, I can only send you guys to hell. 1. Venerable Great Desolation stretched out his right index finger as he said in a solemn voice. The Sword of Evil and Xiaolan's faces were dark, but no one spoke a word. 2. The viciousness on Venerable Great Desolation's face grew more evident. The Sword of Evil and the rest still did not speak a word. 3. When the Great Wilderness Venerable uttered the third word, his face turned completely gloomy. Die. Venerable Great Desolation stomped on the ground as his body charged out like a sharp sword. Venerable Great Desolation had already reached the end of his patience. He had decided to kill the Sword of Evil and Xiaolan before using a secret technique to extract their memories. As long as he had their memories, he wouldn't have to worry about not being able to find Ningyu. Venerable Great Desolation wasn't the Dark Emperor. Extracting the memories of an 8th grade sovereign would greatly affect him. But to find Ningyu and Lu Wei, Venerable Great Desolation couldn't be bothered anymore. He had to take the risk. Before Venerable Great Desolation arrived before Xiaolan and the rest, a cold snort resounded in his ears. Shit! The cold snort caused Venerable Great Desolation's face to slightly change as he immediately retreated. Rustle! Rustle! Whoosh! In the next moment, 3 figures tore through the void and appeared in the room. Ningyu, leave quickly. You're not the Great Wilderness Reverend. Seeing that the martial artists were Ningyu and the others, the Sword of Evil hastily warned them. However, when the Sword of Evil saw the old man beside Ningyu, his voice stopped abruptly. From the old man, the Sword of Evil sensed an aura that was not weaker than that of the Venerable of Great Wilderness, 9th grade human supreme martial artist. The old man's cultivation was also at the 9th grade human supreme realm. Gulp. Venerable Sword Evil and Xiaolan exchanged a glance and swallowed a mouthful of saliva. They could see the shock in each other's eyes. Where did Ningyu go? He actually managed to get such powerful reinforcements. Could this old man be the ancestor of the royal family? Or could it be that the old man had a good relationship with Ningyu? All sorts of doubts rose in the hearts of the Sword of Evil and Xiaolan. Rustle, ignoring the cold expression of the Great Wilderness Reverend, Ningyu instantly appeared before the Dark Emperor and the rest. Piak! Slapping his right hand on the Dark Emperor's chest, he tossed a shenyang pellet into the Dark Emperor's mouth. Ningyu did the same action on the Talisman Supremacy, Yunmu, Dong-He, and the rest. The shenyang pellets that Ningyu fed them were specially refined by him. They were similar to the sacred aura. Phew! The shenyang pellets had proven to be effective. After consuming the shenyang pellet, the Dark Emperor, Talisman Supremacy, Yunmu, and even Dong-He opened their eyes and their auras improved. Shenyang pellet! The Great Wilderness Reverend coldly watched everything. "That's right, at least you have a good eye." Ning Yu said indifferently, "Great Wilderness Reverend, I know you're from the Divine Heaven Gate, but you'll be disappointed if you want to kill me." "Ha ha ha!" Laughing maniacally, the Great Wilderness Reverend said, "Those that I, the Great Wilderness Reverend, want to kill haven't lived a day longer. Dan Guzi, how confident are you in killing the Great Wilderness Reverend?" Ning, you couldn't be bothered to waste words with the Great Wilderness Reverend. Since Dan Guzi was here, the Great Wilderness Reverend would naturally be handled by Dan Guzi. After all, he'd spent a lot of effort to expel the serpent-scorpion venom from Dan Guzi's body. Right now, his strength wasn't even a tenth of his peak. The task of dealing with the Great Wilderness Reverend was definitely on Dan Guzi's shoulders. There's no way to kill him. At most, we'll be evenly matched. Dan Guzi's expression was dark. Both sides were rank 9 human sovereigns, and Dan Guzi had just recovered from his illness. In terms of fighting strength, he was slightly weaker than the Great Wilderness Reverend. Fortunately, Dan Guzi's spiritual strength was extremely powerful. Otherwise, it would be very difficult to intimidate the Great Wilderness Reverend. "Ningyu, I'll ask you one last time. Lu Wei, are you going to hand her over or not?" The Great Wilderness Reverend's expression was cold as he fiercely demanded, "Why do you have so much nonsense to say?" Frowning slightly, Ningyu said, "If you have the ability, then kill me or capture me. If you don't, then shut up and scram." You, being rebuked by Ningyu, the Great Wilderness Reverend trembled in anger. But thinking of his goal this time, he took a deep breath and tore open the void with both hands, wanting to leave. Where there's life, there's hope. Furthermore, the Great Wilderness Reverend didn't believe that Dan Guzi would always be by Ningyu's side. As long as he could find a chance to capture Ningyu, all his problems would be easily resolved. "I'll let you guys be smug for a few days." The corner of his mouth curled up. The Great Wilderness Reverend stepped into the void. Rumble. Just as the Great Wilderness Reverend's head entered the void, the entire space above the capital suddenly split open. Swish, swish, swish. The void split open, and 3 figures emerged from the void. What's going on? Who are those 3? Why are they floating in the air? Who else could it be? They must be experts. It's best if we don't get involved. That's right. When immortals fight, we should hide early to avoid being implicated. Right. You're right. Even if the sky falls, Dongwu College and the Imperial family will hold it up. We shouldn't get involved blindly. After the 3 figures appeared, the capital was momentarily thrown into a panic. But the panic didn't last for long, and everything returned to normal. Sha, sha, sha. The 3 figures landed on the streets of the capital and quickly blended into the crowd, disappearing from sight. While the 3 figures disappeared, in a certain room in the Imperial family, Ningyu and Dan Guzi's expressions completely darkened. Their hearts sank to the bottom. Rank 9 human supremes. Ningyu and Dan Guzi could clearly sense that the leader of the 3 figures that had appeared in the void was a rank 9 human supremes. The other 2 cultivators weren't rank 9 human supremes, but their cultivation had reached the peak of rank 8 human supremes. Most importantly, Dan Guzi sensed an extremely familiar aura from the 3 of them. Chapter 1178. Venerable Ling Su. Could it be that those 3 have enmity with Ningyu's group? Seeing the changes in Ningyu's and Dan Guzi's expressions, a bold idea rose in Venerable Great Desolation's mind. Gritting his teeth, Venerable Great Desolation channeled his soul energy and sent a voice transmission to the 9th grade human sovereign on the streets of the capital. "The person you're looking for is here. I'll block for you for now." Saying that, Venerable Great Desolation focused his mind and paid attention to any sudden situations. "Russell, On the streets of the capital, the ninth grade human supreme being stopped in his tracks when he heard the voice. Saber Mountain Venerable, what's wrong? Seeing that the ninth grade human sovereign had stopped, a pinnacle eighth grade human sovereign asked in puzzlement. Nothing, follow me. The old man called Saber Mountain Venerable shook his head and tore space apart before entering. Upon seeing Saber Mountain Venerable entering the void, the remaining two peak eighth grade sovereign venerables did not hesitate at all. They quickly followed suit and disappeared. Damn it! In the royal family's room, Ning Yu's expression turned ugly when he sensed three powerful figures rushing towards him at high speed. As the saying went, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. Ning Yu could predict that the three experts from the Alchemy Union would definitely join forces with Venerable Great Desolation. At that time, they would lose the chance to escape. Let's go. Ning Yu wasn't an indecisive person. He left as soon as he said he would, grabbing Dark Emperor Yun Mu and the others with his left and right hands respectively. Ning Yu executed a secret art and tore through the void, flying far away. Bang! Ning Yu's speed wasn't slow, but it didn't take long before he crashed into a transparent barrier. Buzz! Buzz! Following that, three figures appeared. It's here indeed. Locking his gaze on Dan Guzi, Saber Mountain Venerable's lips rose. Dan Guzi, I didn't expect your cultivation to not improve after fleeing for so many years. Saber Mountain Venerable, you've actually reached the middle phase, ninth grade sovereign. Dan Guzi's expression was very ugly. What is your goal in coming here? My goal? Heh, isn't that obvious? I'll bring you back to the Alchemy Union's headquarters and conveniently bring back the Shenyang pills left behind by the Devil Venerable. Blade Mountain Venerable answered with a faint smile. I was poisoned by the serpent scorpion venom. After all these years, I've used up most of my Shenyang pills. I don't even have one left, said Dan Guzi. Not a single one left? Saber Mountain Venerable shrugged and answered. It's true that you don't have any Shenyang pills with you, but Saber Mountain Venerable one changed the topic and pointed at Ningyu. This young fella has Shenyang pills, and there are a lot of them, at least 10s of them. Hiss! Hearing the Blade Mountain Venerable's words, not only were the two pinnacle 8th grade sovereigns shocked, even the Great Desolation Venerable sucked in a cold breath. 10s of Shenyang pills? If he had all of them, he might even be able to advance to the intermediate 9th grade sovereign realm. The Great Desolation Venerable was vexed that he didn't execute his secret technique on Ningyu and take down Ningyu first. The only thing we can do now is to wait and see if we can get some soup. With the Blade Mountain Venerable around, the Great Desolation Venerable didn't dare to act recklessly. Given his initial 9th grade sovereign cultivation, he might not even be able to withstand a single move from the Blade Mountain Venerable. There was a huge difference between intermediate 9th grade sovereign and an initial 9th grade sovereign. If only Supremacy Spiritual Su was here. At this moment, the Great Desolation Venerable thought of Supremacy Spiritual Su. Supremacy Spiritual Su was the old friend he went to see after coming to the Great Xia Kingdom. Although they were called old friends, they only met once during the Black Moon Continent's Genius Tournament. Because Supremacy Spiritual Su was an intermediate 9th grade sovereign, the Great Desolation Venerable had no choice but to pay him a visit. I'll tell Supremacy Spiritual Su first. Turning his eyes, the Great Desolation Venerable secretly forced out a drop of blood essence and started training Supremacy Spiritual Su. Brat, hand over the Shenyang pills, and we can spare your life. After all, our target is Dan Guzi, not you. Beside the Blade Mountain Venerable, a peak 8th grade sovereign called Hefei said, Don't think of putting up a futile resistance. If we want to kill you, it'll be easier than squashing an ant. That's right. Hand over the Shenyang pills and live. Otherwise die. The other peak 8th grade sovereign was called He Shu. He was the brother of He Fei. Ning Yu's face was dark. No one knew what he was thinking. If it was just 2 peak 8th grade sovereigns and the Great Desolation Venerable, he wouldn't be afraid. But with the Blade Mountain Venerable around, he couldn't do anything. Helpless, Ning Yu took out a storage bag and threw it to the Blade Mountain Venerable. Pa! Saber Mountain Venerable caught the storage bag firmly and tossed it into his arms without even looking at it. Don't make me repeat myself. Hand over all of your Shenyang pills. There were only 10 Shenyang pills in the storage bag that he gave to the Blade Mountain Venerable. That also meant that Ning, you still had over 60 Shenyang pills left. Ha ha ha. Why is the imperial family so lively today? Just when Ning Yu wanted to take out the second storage bag, a burst of laughter resounded from the void. Crack! Thereafter, the void cracked and a gray-clothed elder appeared. Supremacy Spiritual Su, middle 9th grade sovereign. The Great Desolation Venerable and the Blade Mountain Venerable exclaimed the moment the gray-clothed elder appeared. But while the Great Desolation Venerable was delighted, the Blade Mountain Venerable had a grave expression. Just when he was about to obtain the dozens of Shenyang pills, a middle 9th grade sovereign appeared out of nowhere, which made the Blade Mountain Venerable unhappy. Despite being unhappy, the Blade Mountain Venerable continued, I'm the Blade Mountain Venerable from the headquarters of the Elixir Formation continent. May I know where you're from? The Blade Mountain Venerable's intention was clear. He would first introduce himself and use the headquarters of the Elixir Formation Union to suppress him. If the other party was a wandering cultivator without a sect, then today's matter would be resolved perfectly. If the other party was from a sect, then today would be troublesome. It doesn't matter where I'm from. What's important is that the headquarters of the Elixir Formation Union can't suppress me. Supremacy Spiritual Su faintly said, Isn't it stuffy to have so many people in this room? Humph. I advise you not to be a busybody. Otherwise, you'll have to bear the consequences. The Blade Mountain Venerable was prideful as he snorted. Supremacy, Great Desolation, why did you call me here? Supremacy Spiritual Su ignored the Blade Mountain Venerable's snort and turned towards the Great Desolation Venerable. Ning Yu has dozens of Shenyang pills with him. The reason why I called you here is to split the Shenyang pills with you. The Great Desolation Venerable coldly continued. According to my speculations, Ning Yu should have 60 to 70 Shenyang pills with him. How about we split it 50 to 50? Seeing that Supremacy Spiritual Su wasn't speaking, the Great Desolation Venerable clenched his teeth. You're tuning in to the Thunder Spear YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.